Hello and welcome to my Truth or Hangout very casual show today. I just got some videos lined up for us to watch together and then a quick Bible study at the end. So I hope you guys enjoy. We're just going to kick back, and after each video or during, I might pause some of the videos and talk. But I'm going to start us off with a little song here. Hopefully get a couple viewers in here. We'll see. And I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks.
This my boy, better get down.
Just starting us off with a song here.
No matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what may come, I put my trust in you. When things are going bad, or things are going good, through the thick and thin, I put my trust in you. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what may come, I put my trust in you. When things are going bad, or things are going good, through the thick and thin, I put my trust in you. First things first, to God be all the glory. If it wasn't for His grace, there would be no hope in my soul. I thank you for your love that never changes. 'Cause 1,000 times I failed you, but 1,000 you forgave me. You forgive me and forget it, and you never regret it. Can't begin to understand it. My God, I just don't get it. I'm feeling so unworthy. My God, what can I tell you? I know what's right and wrong, but every single day I fail you. Jesus, come into my heart. Please change my way of thinking. I wanna walk on water with no worries of sinking. From the inside to the outside, Lord, I wanna be consumed, and I don't care what people think. All I aim to please is you. So no matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what may come, I put my trust in you. When things are going bad, or things are going good, through the thick and thin, I put my trust in you. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what may come, I put my trust in you. When things are going bad, or things are going good, through the thick and thin, I put my trust in you. Never was a thug, no, never was a gangster. I was just a youngster dealing with a lot of anger. Used to walk around feeling so misunderstood. Me mugging everybody, just wishing somebody would. I was always agitated, dealing with a lot of pain. Things at home were pretty crazy. Some of y'all might understand. See, Dad had a drinking problem and battled other addictions. He would try to straighten up, but ended up in the wrong direction. It was hard for me to function, dealing with these type of issues. Wanted to ask for help, but too scared of what people think though. So I acted really tough when inside I was really broken. But even a lot of men don't cry, so my feelings, they stayed unspoken. I looked at my peers, they seemed happy as they could be. Or could it be that they were faking and struggling just like me? Father God, I need your help. This pain is unrelenting. I don't want to live my life being fake, always pretending so. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what may come, I put my trust in you. When things are going bad, or things are going good, through the thick and thin, I put my trust in you. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what may come, I put my trust in you. When things are going bad, or things are going good, through the thick and thin, I put my trust in you. No matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what may come, I put my trust in you. When things are going bad, or things are going good, through the thick and thin, I put my trust in you.
All right. Well, I was hoping somebody would get in here. It doesn't look like we got any viewers yet, but that's okay. I'm not exactly a very big channel on YouTube. Next up, we got some people will watch this later though, so that's cool. I hope you guys enjoy it whenever you're watching it. If anybody wants to hop on the show too, I'll drop a link, and if you want to join me here. Next up, I got a Wise Up video. He's been dropping some pretty good ones lately. In fact, I should go back to some of his past recent ones that I didn't pull up today. But this one's pretty good. Concrete and rebar waffle blocks. So let's watch it. Let me know, a viewer, if you think the audio is too loud or too soft.
Stone does not do that.
Let me know.
And when you look
and I
at
can
it,
fix it.
It is blindingly obvious that it's concrete, right? That's been submerged in water, come to the surface, solidified, and then dried out. Take a close look at that when you go to my Google page. Obviously, this is the Great Pyramid. Right, so you know the area in Mexico, I've just shown you where they have excavated down. And there's obviously more to it. Well, this is the Great Pyramid.
By the way, if any viewers watching live, if you have any comments, go ahead and leave them in this and we can talk about it. We can always pause a video and talk about anything if you notice something or have any questions.
Archaeologists, Egyptologists tell you that they carved this area out here, right, to lock blocks into place or something like that, but it's not. These are literally concrete blocks like this that just go further out and deeper, right? But this is just solidified lime that's ran out of all this concrete off these blocks with weather and been flooded, and it's just ran out on the floor and formed a hard surface over blocks that go down much deeper, right? Exactly the same way as this. This is the 9/11 site, the Twin Towers, you know, the huge hole in the car parking area, right? You know, that turned to dust. I'm not going to get into the obvious reasons why it didn't fall, but you can see when it hardens, it forms, you know, like the stuff that I've shown you in like Peru. Yeah. It re-hardens again, extremely hard. That's Sacsayhuaman. I've shown you that area. That's limestone that's solidified in the exact same way. That's another site. I don't know where that is now.
All right, this is actually pretty good right here. He's showing the bricks that are underneath. He's saying they skimmed over it, but it's basically bricks underneath. And he's pretty much showing it with these pictures over here. I think he shows some closer ups here too, from what I remember. Okay, that's a pretty good picture right there. Yeah, they love to coat things, don't they? Skin coat. That's one of the things Wise Up's been showing a lot lately. A lot of bricks. Yeah, there's so much buried there still in that region. They don't want to do the excavation, do they? At least not really that exposes all the levels underneath what we see. What is up? More than a flame. How's it going, man? Hop in if you want. Anybody can hop in. I think you're the only one viewing right now, as far as I can tell. So. Yeah, so they tell people this is a game that they used to play. I guess, but really it's just something totally different, of course. Or they just scratched lines onto it. What's up, Joel? Uh-oh, I had you and I lost you. Yeah, this is Armageddon right here. I think this is all from Armageddon. Everything we've been seeing pretty much in this video with that whole region. I think that was very likely all that destruction was done during that time. to these places. All right, let's try again.
Yo.
What's up, Joel?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Just hanging out today, rolling up something while we're watching some videos here. I got a little Bible study here at the end too. So
Sweet.
in fact, you'll probably like it. It's the one you talked about, Zechariah 13 and 14 is what I got lined up. So
All right, cool.
yeah, it's super weird, really, when you read those verses. And I don't know. We'll get to it later, but I don't know if you'll be around. But
Yeah. I'm really happy that you're doing this. I've been like deep in the trenches with that psychopath guy.
oh, really? You're
Yeah.
still dealing with that?
Yeah, dude. I mean, you got to see. Well, it's so hard because I don't want to subject people to it, but like people need to see what's happening, and like it's here. I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna post the video. Maybe you can watch it later. It's the most atrocious thing I've ever seen, and he's doing everything he's doing. He does in the name of Jesus, and it's just
Yeah. Is it that same guy who was flipping out on you on that live stream, calling you all sorts of crazy names and stuff? It was all
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's got some real demons inside of him, running inside of him, man. He's like, I could just tell just from that one clip. It was like, man, that guy was. Oh, you got a link there? Well, all right. We'll do a little sidetrack.
Well, no, I don't. He swears a lot. It's a 18 plus. It's a video that.
Yeah. That's okay. I mean, we can deal with some curse words here.
It's pretty aggressive. This is something he just did to someone 2 days ago. A woman he's never met. He attacked her because he's friends with people he thinks that he's fighting. I don't know if he actually thinks it. I don't know how he could possibly think that he's okay, but he acts like he's out fighting a giant satanic pedophile ring that we're all in the Illuminati, and like it's disturbing. He has a little cult.
Right. You know what? I can't do it through StreamYard. It won't let me copy a link like through their chat system. So I
don't think it's a good idea for you to watch it. I don't know.
All right. That's cool. We'll maybe watch that later or something, maybe on a different stream or who knows, or I'll just check it out maybe on my own or something.
That's what I was hoping, because it'll ruin your whole stream.
Yeah. It'll definitely interrupt the what I got lined up here for sure. So no worries, man. So what I got next here is this guy Flatwater. Now this guy got into it with me. I got into it with this guy. He was calling me all sorts of names on a comment one time because I was proposing, Golden Age past, 1,000 years was already over and stuff like that. And this dude went off on me. So he's stuck in the pre-tribulation stuff and all that, but he is a flat earther. And so every once in a while, and he's all in Enoch, and he's all into like the book of Adam and Eve and all sorts of stuff, Book of the Giants, and like, I don't know. So this one, of course, he's got Patagonian giants, which it is a topic that interests me. I don't know if this whole thing is, a work of fiction by the forces of Satan, or if there's something to it, So, because Patagonia is a quite mysterious place. It's down there near Argentina. And it's a very unpopulated, it's just like a rugged place, I think, too. So I don't know. I mean, this video is kind of interesting. I don't know if I'll watch the whole 30 minutes of it. We'll see. So we'll start.
All right. I'm here to hang out.
I'll go. This guy, I mean, we'll see how far I can get with this guy. Sometimes I don't watch his whole video and stuff just because
This is the Patagonian Giants.
And if you have any comments while we're watching, anybody that's listening, feel free. We can pause.
Captured the European imagination for a very long time. The first mention of this race surfaced in the 1520s from the account of Antonio Pigafetta, the chronicler of Ferdinand Magellan's expedition. But one day, without anyone expecting it, we saw a giant who was on the shore near today's Puerto San Julian, Argentina, quite naked, and who danced, leaped, and sang. And while he sang, he threw sand and dust on his head. Our captain Magellan sent one of his men toward him, charging him to leap and sing like the other, in order to reassure him and to show him friendship, which he did. Immediately the man of the ship, dancing, led this giant to a small island where the captain awaited him. And when he was before us, he began to marvel and to be afraid. And he raised one finger upward, believing that we came from heaven. And he was so tall that the tallest of us only came up to his waist. Withal, he was well proportioned. The captain named the people of this sort Pathagoni. The etymology of the word is unclear, but Patagonia came to mean land of the Bigfoot. Magellan seized 2 of the younger males as hostages to bring back to Spain, but they got sick and died on the journey. Unbelievable. He stole 2 people to bring back, 2 giants, but they died. 100 years later, in The World Encompassed, London, 1628, the first detailed account of Sir Francis Drake's circumnavigation, the author, Drake's nephew of the same name, wrote, Magellan was not altogether deceived in naming them giants, for they generally differ from the common sort of men both in stature, bigness, and strength of body, as also in the hideousness of their voice. Yet they are nothing so monstrous or giant-like as they were reported. Their
Hey, Joel, does this audio sound okay to you?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
being some Englishmen, as tall as the highest of any that we could see, but peradventure the Spaniards did not think that ever any Englishman would come thither to reprove them, and thereupon might presume the more boldly to lie. The name Pentagones 5 cubits, these 7 foot and a half, describing the full height, if not somewhat more, of the highest of them. But this is certain, that the Spanish cruelties there used, referring to Magellan's hostage-taking, had made them more monstrous in mind and manners than they are in body, and more inhospitable to deal with any strangers that shall come thereafter. He reduced the height of the Patagonians from 10 feet to 7.5 feet, but was obviously more intent on discrediting the Spanish and blaming them for the monstrosity of the giants. Ironically, though, he was really confirming the basic facts. English sailor offering bread to a Patagonian woman giant. It's the front piece to the first Italian edition of John Byron's A Voyage Around the World in His Majesty's Ship the Dolphin. Florence, 1768. In the 1700s, the myth was still alive and entertaining Europeans. Horace Walpole, the English historian and Gothic novelist, published an account of the giants lately discovered in a letter to a friend in the country, following the return in 1766 of Captain John Byron, who had circumnavigated the world in the HMS Dolphin. Word leaked that the crew had seen 9-foot giants in South America. Byron's May docking and Walpole's July publication suggest the rapidity with which rumors passed along the London grapevine. In his 31-page pamphlet, Walpole satirizes the whole idea and facetiously suggests that a limited number of the giant women could be imported for the sake of mending our breed. The official account of Byron's voyage, appearing in 1773, finally debunks it, but not without respecting the Patagonians' vertical features. So here's Byron's account. When we came within a little distance from the shore, we saw, as near as I can guess, about 500 people, some on foot, but the greater part on horseback. One of them, who afterwards appeared to be a chief, came towards me. He was of a gigantic stature, and seemed to realize the tales of monsters in a human shape. If I may judge of his height by the proportion of his stature to my own, it could not be much less than 7.
Hey, Joel, any thoughts on the video so far?
I was thinking that to myself how I think it's very possible. I'd have to look at the scriptures. I mean, doesn't it at some point describe how tall some of these giants were, or is that only the extra biblical books?
You know, it uses terms that we interpret today in our size terms. So, for example, a cubit is actually the measurement from your elbow to the tip of your finger. So for a modern day 6 foot tall human, that's 18 inches roughly. Now, when they refer to cubits in the Bible, if the beings were of a taller stature, then their cubits would be much larger than 18 inches. So that's all we have to really go on. I don't know. I do think you're right. It's getting the measurements like that they speak of in the Bible. We don't know exactly what they're talking about, I don't think.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't know the actual distance potentially that they're talking about, but we know that I think potentially they're all much bigger than what we've been told in terms of the size. Because when you look at like the size, you know, when the dimensions of the temple of, let's say, the New Jerusalem temple, or the one that falls down, you know, drops from heaven, that all those dimensions are given, and they always refer to like cubits or what's the other one they use? Furlong, I think, is like the substituted term, but either way, it all comes down to what was the original like unit that they were measuring off of, and we don't really know that.
Right.
Because we know a foot, to us, a foot is 12 inches because that would be the average man's foot nowadays. But back then, a foot could have been much larger.
Right.
I definitely think people have gotten smaller like over time.
Me too.
And obviously, like the real giants were before the flood. But then doesn't the Bible say there were giants in the earth in those days and afterwards?
Yeah.
I think it says. And so it's like, and then it kind of leaves the door open for a little bit of like all this unexplained things about, and then obviously just the buildings that are all of very enormous stature that appear to be from like the millennial reign era.
Yeah, and then the doors, how you have a normal size door and then like a huge door.
Yeah, so it's like, I definitely think a big part of the deception has been hiding the giants, because the Smithsonian's like only job for the past 100 years has been to cover up the existence of giants, like other than all the other hoaxes they've been involved in, but that's been a big job for them.
Yeah.
Are you aware of how they swoop in and they always?
Yeah, and you know what would be interesting, dude? What if we set up a bunch of cameras, like a lot of cameras, and we went out to a place where it's believable there could be a giant, and we planted fake giant bones and then contacted someone like, hey, we just found this giant. We were digging.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Dangerous as hell, but I mean, yeah, it's not a bad idea.
I think that would be amazing.
You start messing with those people, and then it's like, then what are they going to do?
Well, and then you get to actually film, the Men in Black showing up.
Right. Right.
I think
that's actually I never thought of that. But all right, we'll watch a little bit more of this here. I do think this Patagonia region, I believe there's something to this where they declare a lot of these areas that are. Oh shoot! I lost more than a flame, but that's okay. Hopefully he'll be back here in a minute. But there is something to this area, things where these large areas where they declare them United Nations World Heritage Sites, or they declare them as these giant national parks. And then of course we have all the mysterious disappearances that can happen in them. But I mean, I do believe Patagonia is one of those places where it's this very large uninhabited area where strange things have been known to occur from time to time. So I think we got Joel back here.
Yeah, it's my webcam, dude. I don't know why. I plugged in my headphones, but they're sketchy sometimes. Does it sound okay now? Or
you're fine. You sound fine.
All right, cool.
But yeah, I'm going to continue with the video, but I was just talking about Patagonia, how this is one of those United Nations, I believe, World Heritage Sites, or it's at bare minimum like a national park site of Argentina or something, but it's one of those huge unpopulated areas, basically, that, and just so happens to be declared as like, a World Heritage Site or whatever, one of those kind of deals where they want to keep people out, basically, right?
Right, okay.
10 feet. Mr. Cumming, one of Byron's officers, came up with the tobacco, a gift, and I could not but smile at his astonishment, which I saw expressed in his countenance, upon perceiving himself, though 6 feet 2 inches high, become a pygmy among giants. For these people may indeed more properly be called giants than tall men, the shortest of whom were at least 4 inches taller.
So in this portion, I'll be reading to you directly from an account of the voyages undertaken by the order of His Present Majesty for making discoveries in the Southern Hemisphere, and successively performed by Commodore Byron, Captain Wallace, Captain Carteret, and Captain Cook in the Dolphin, the Swallow, and the Endeavour, drawn up from the journals which were kept by these commanders and from the papers of Joseph Banks, Esquire. Voyages round the world. So I'm reading to you directly now from a general introduction. This cannot be done in an unbroken series when the complicated and multifarious objects of history are to be recorded. But as each of the narratives in this work is a single thread, the transactions of every day are set down in a regular succession and the time noted in the margin. Great care has been taken to make the charts and the nautical parts of the narrative coincide. If there should be any difference, which it is hoped will not be the case, the charts are to be confided in as of unquestionable authority. By the charts as well as by the narrative, especially by that on which the tracks of the several vessels are marked, it will be seen how far the existence or non-existence of a southern continent is already ascertained. and what land has, in the course of these voyages, been first discovered. The charts also will, at one view, present any mistake which might arise from the same name having been given to different islands by the several commanders in these voyages, without the trouble of comparing the latitudes and longitudes assigned them in the narrative. As it is but a very few years since the existence of a race of men above the common stature upon the coast of Patagonia was the subject of eager dispute among all ranks of people in this country, I have brought together the whole of the evidence on the question, as I find it in a collection of voyages lately printed in France under the title of Histoire des Navigations aux Terres Australes. It must be acknowledged that the contrariety of the reports that have been made by ocular witnesses concerning a fact easy to be determined does not deviate less from the common course of things than the gigantic stature of the people in question. It appears that during an 100 years, almost all navigators of whatever country agree in affirming the existence of a race of giants upon the coast of Patagonia, and that during another century, the much greater number agree in denying this fact, treating their predecessors as idle fabulists, and imputing their reports either to the terror which the rude fierceness of a savage people inspired, or to the natural propensity of mankind to assume importance by pretending to have seen wonderful things. That men have a strange propensity to the marvelous cannot be denied, nor that fear naturally magnifies its object. But though it be allowed that the accounts of the Patagonians have in some instances been exaggerated, it is certain that all who have affirmed their stature to be gigantic were not under the influence of fear, and it is very strange that nations who have an hereditary hatred to each other and an acknowledged opposition of interest should agree in asserting an evident falsehood. In the first place, it is well known to have been an opinion long established, both in our ancient world and in America, that there was once a race of giants upon earth who distinguished themselves by violence and guilt. Barbonet was told by the inhabitants of South America that a deluge having laid Peru under water, the Indians retired to the mountains till the flood should subside, and that when they came again down to the plain, they found there men of an enormous stature, who attacked them with great ferocity, killing many and driving the rest to the caves of the rocks. But that having continued in their hiding places many years, they saw in the air a young man who destroyed the giants by thunderbolts, and thus restored to them the possession of their country.
Hey, it's got a echo going on.
Oh, is there? Oh, yeah, that was probably my mute. When I mute my mic for some reason, it starts to echo. So I'll have to be careful on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably won't watch too much more in this video because I think he's going to go on a lot with the same stuff, and his voice is a little monotone as well. But yeah, I mean, I think this kind of could tie into. I think this topic could kind of tie into the Sasquatch topic because pretty much all the current research from anyone that's credible that I've seen definitely knows that they are human and they are not like an ape. So potentially there's some kind of a link there between these types of giants and them being, you know, also larger, taller than normal humans. But anyway, also I think that could potentially tie into the Edomites and those of the line of Esau, because he was known to be hairy, and he was also like a master of the forest, and he was a great hunter. And his blessing, which was taken away from him by Jacob, which was to, you know, rule the kingdoms and all that, which was what Jacob was given, Esau was given the other blessing, which was he was going to live off the fat of the land or something like that. So it's I don't know.
What's your take on that scripture when it says Jacob I loved, and as it is written, Jacob I loved and Esau I hated? Like that, right. That's always confused me. But the Black Hebrew Israelites try to use that. Here's what I think about that particular verse is that his blessing was taken away from him, and yes, he hated him in the sense that he was given such a weak blessing compared to Jacob's and everything. I mean, it's just that he was given so much more, Jacob was, than what Esau essentially was given. Well, didn't Jacob trick his dad? He did, yes. But it's like basically condoned. I mean, his mother was the one that talked him into it. Well, that's what makes no sense. If those things were originally supposed to go to Esau, then why would God say that he hated Esau when it was Jacob who did the deceiving? You
Yeah,
see what I'm saying?
that whole story is kind of confusing, and it's like one of those that like I just leave it up to like the Holy Spirit to figure it out, because it's not like on the surface, like on the flesh. Like when your flesh reads the story, it automatically like thinks, oh, Jacob's a bad guy. You know what I mean? He's a deceiver. But really, when your spirit reads the story, I guess you could say, or later after you have understanding, you can kind of figure out better like what it's all about. I don't fully understand it yet. Like I don't claim to, but I just think that it was God's will, basically, that Jacob would be the one that would, where the tribes of Israel would come from. It was just preordained, really. I mean, I don't know, just because Esau was the firstborn and he had the firstborn inheritance of the blessing didn't mean that that's what God wanted to happen. God wanted Jacob to have the blessing, and so he made that happen. He allowed it to happen. And there were things about Esau that he didn't like. He was whoring with all the women. So one of the things that his mother and his father were really pissed off about Esau was that he was going around with all the locals, because remember, Isaac was told not to fornicate with the local women or like mix with them or something like that. And that's exactly what Esau went and did. And so that put him in the bad graces of God already. And that's why pretty much his blessing was taken away and everything. He pretty much turned against God, whereas Jacob loved God a lot more, basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's as much as I know for now, I guess, on that. But let's go to the next video here. We got Jared Boosters. It's a pretty quick one, 8 minutes, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, his channel's growing quickly. I like that.
I don't like fully trust this guy. Like I don't know what kind of spin he's eventually going to come out with, but I'd say his videos for the most part are pretty good. There were a few like in the beginning where he was getting like, it was really strange. Like I maybe should go back and dig it up just to prove what I'm saying, but he was getting like strangely enthusiastic about weird topics. And I didn't quite understand where his like giddy enthusiasm was coming from.
What topics?
He also talks to people like he always on his videos. If you'll notice, he talks like you're 5 years old. So it's just kind of something's just a little off with this guy. I'm not sure what it is, but
well, it's gonna end. Or go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm working.
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I'm so sorry for doing that, dude. I'm really not trying to do that anymore.
It wasn't important. Don't worry.
I just think eventually it's gonna come to a point where it's gonna come down to like, is it Jesus or is it not Jesus? Like it's always going to end.
Right.
You know, eventually, like you said, like there's going to be some ending to what he's doing, and it's going to either be a spin away from Jesus or he's going to teach that Jesus is the truth.
I think finding Jesus is the final red pill that you take when you go down this conspiracy rabbit hole. If you're really seeking like the truth, I think that's the final red pill you end up taking. And it's not a fake conversion either. It's not like I'm in a church and I'm screaming out and gyrating around and this and that. It's like a real knowing, you know.
Yeah, you're fully persuaded. You come to just like, wow, like he's real. This is real.
Yeah.
Instead of it being like a choice, like, oh well, I don't want to go to hell.
Based
so I'll
on
just
faith
pick
alone
him.
without having any facts. But now it's like we have all these facts and all this truth.
Right, like physical
it's
evidence.
So much easier to convert now.
I tried to talk to this atheist guy, and he's a cool guy, and he's a close friend to some close friends that I have, and he's in another country. I think he's in like Australia or something. But he, is a flat out atheist, but he talks a lot about, healing type stuff and like the psychology, and like they get into different topics about
Sure.
narcissism and just how to better yourself and be more introspective or whatever. Well, anyway, he admits that there was this woman he met that sent him this like CD, and he listens to this music, and then he's like admits that he's getting this information from some source, that it's like being channeled to him, but he denies God. And so I tried to be like, all right, well, that makes no sense to me at all. Like, you're admitting there's spirits, like there's something outside of ourselves.
Sure.
But then I tried to bring up Tartaria and all these things, because I was saying, well, if it's something we can't prove, then what we can do if you're actually interested in the truth, because we're all going to die. If you want to know whether or not God's real or, there's an afterlife, and all we can do is look at the logical, physical evidence, then I think that's what we should do. Like, we should look at, Tartaria and all these other things that we can see. And then, ironically, it actually lines up with the Bible.
Right. I look at the Bible as this is how I see it now. Bible is my number one source. The physical reality is my number two source, like the facts that we can still find, because a lot of it's been changed and obfuscated and lied about, right? So we don't know in the physical if everything is really the truth that we're seeing or not, you know what I mean? But we can, like you said, go back to the Bible and put it all together, and it's like if you combine the two, it works great, I think. Also, I was going to say the whole metaphysical, like spiritualism, like you were saying, like how they believe in spirits but not God, or they'll call it the source, right? They'll call it source. It's like they're one step away. They're actually just one step away from getting saved, because at least they've gotten past the whole like atheist mentality and the physical, material only, reality. And so they're kind of purple pilled, actually. But
I like that. Okay.
They're like purple pilled, and they just need to take the final red pill, and then, which is Jesus, is real. The Bible is real. And then all of a sudden, when you have that like Holy Spirit conversion, all of a sudden your eyes are opened, and like you can just start seeing truth so much easier at that point, like how the Mandela effect's a hoax and things like that. Because all those New Agers are the ones that get trapped into all that Mandela effect stuff, right? Because they're catering, that whole psyop caters to them.
Right. And yeah, you're right.
So we should be reaching out to those people a lot, because they're like right on the cusp. They're ready to take the red pill, actually. You know what I mean? I hate to use that reference, but it's just easy to for people to understand when I say it that way, I think. But anyways, let's watch this video now.
Okay.
And we can talk more. But if you have any comments about what the video is talking about,
thank you to
we can pause and
everyone
talk
who
about
left
it too.
comments and viewed my last video. It's become my most popular video about the old world, and it's reaching a larger audience. So I really appreciate that, and I thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and ideas. That being said, I don't want you to think I'm not reading everything you have to say, and I'm taking the more popular opinions that I've read, and I'm hoping to tie them together in a follow-up video. But in the meantime, I wanted to present another old world sort of structure with you, and this one won't be as old as many of the others, at least according to the current narrative. However, this is a really interesting building that I thought we needed to discuss. Now, this is the Yoyang Hotel in Pyongyang, North Korea, and Pyongyang is the capital of North Korea. Now, the Yoyang Hotel is 105 stories tall. It is also 330 meters or 1,080 feet tall. And it's a pyramid-shaped skyscraper. And they call it the 105 building. They say they call it that because of the 105 floors that it contains. However, this building is also known as North Korea's Tower of Doom. And we're going to get into the current narrative about it, as well as discussing some of the more interesting facts surrounding this building. Now, this is the tallest building in North Korea by far, but this is also the tallest unoccupied building in all of the world. Originally, this was designed, they say, to be a hotel. However, that was never completed, and it's now being used as a massive projection screen for the North Korean government. They have fitted LED screens to one side of this building, and they basically use it to project images and words over their public, much like 1984 or Blade Runner. It is very interesting. Something I couldn't help but notice is how the entire city of Pyongyang really appears to take its shape and develop around this tower, or the whole landscape is basically developed around this tower. In the oldest photographs, the land appears barren, and we'll take a look at that soon, but now it's fully developed. Now, they also say that this tower began in 1987. So this is not an old world construction. However, we're going to look at some of the photographs of this tower from 1987, and there'll be a lot of anomalies that we're going to talk about. Now, another interesting fact is that Pyongyang really has a lot of new structures that could be fitting of the old world, including different triumphal arches and things of that nature. And I think it's really interesting that in the new world, city of Pyongyang, North Korea, we have this old world architecture that is being utilized. And even down to the layout of the city and the streets, we find that it's very reminiscent of the old world cities that I've covered in previous videos. And I find that to be very fascinating. And I just wonder if there's something to that.
I like this picture because it just shows like the really crummy buildings that are like they built
Right.
like compared to what that it looks like, even though it's not even done, you know, it's just half done or whatever.
Now, what really struck me about this tower, the Yongyang Tower, and why I wanted to present it to you is because there are really no known construction photographs of this tower. Every photograph that I could find on the internet showed the tower in at least this state or more. Basically, the earliest photographs that I could find were the tower itself is basically already completed, and it's really coming out of a large mound of earth. So you'll find that the city is now level, and there is a vast city below this tower. It's very sprawling, and it's very built out. But in the earliest photograph,
Okay, I got to talk about this photo because that is super crazy. Like, look at that. I mean, compare this photo is like this to me is like some kind of a smoking gun. This photo.
Well, as far as what? Like
As far as I mean, this is a
great.
golden age past, or maybe went through Armageddon, one of the two. But this is absolute proof of them finding this building. They did not build that building. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's impossible. Look at the surroundings of all the dirt that's like around that. There is not even a road going to it. You could not even get construction equipment properly to that build site. It doesn't even look leveled even. I mean, everything about this photo is like a smoking gun of golden age past.
Yeah, that's probably like the top of what used to be there.
Right. Well, yeah, there could even be, you're correct. Yeah, there could be structure beneath. I believe that on a lot of the old buildings, there's stuff hidden below. Yeah, buried still, for sure.
So
that's actually in the Wise Up video.
You'll find that this tower was built precariously on a hill or mountainside. That's what I find really fascinating about the Yongyang Tower is that the entire landscape surrounding the tower appears to have changed in the short time from when construction began. We're talking the late 1980s until right now, and there is a sprawling city below this tower. And it just seems really inefficient to me to build a tower on a hill or mountainside like this. It seems like it would be a lot more difficult than building it on leveled land. Basically erecting this tower and then clearing away the mountain or the hillside after you're done. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I'm not in construction. So does that make sense to anybody else out there? According to the current narrative, this construction began in 1987, but it was halted in 1992 when North Korea entered an economic crisis. And this happened after the Soviet Union dissolved. So we've talked a lot about Russia and the Soviet Union and their possible connections to the old world and the land of Tartary that once stretched over much of Russia. So it's interesting to note that they have some sort of deep connection to this Yuyong Hotel in North Korea. Now, they say this construction remained unchanged from 1992 until 2008, and that is when construction resumed. And it really just makes me wonder how influential the USSR or Russia really was on the construction and founding of this hotel. Now, like I said before, this is the tallest building in all of North Korea. And one interesting fact that they have about this building is that they say it has a truncated cone on the top that is 130 feet wide, and it rises for 14 floors. 8 of these floors rotate, and 6 of these floors are static, and they all reach towards the apex. So I found it to be really interesting. Just looking at the oldest photographs of this hotel, it's really hard to explain how they constructed this. I'm not saying that it is impossible because obviously it stands before us, but to have no construction photographs before this one, and then to see this massive, and I mean massive, hotel pyramid jutting out of this mountainside, and then to look at the hotel now and to see that the land around it is completely flat and it's completely thin.
Hold on a second. Dude, that was just like what you were talking about.
What?
This right here. Okay, right at the end of this clip, look at the lower right-hand corner, and there's like, it looks like there's a level buried
Possible,
below
because
where it's
obviously
gray, it
it
turns
stands
red or
before
something,
us,
like red
but to
brick.
have no construction photographs before this one, and then to see this massive, and I mean massive, hotel pyramid jutting out of this mountainside,
You see
and
that?
then to look at the hotel now
Look at that.
and to see that the land
Wow.
around it is
Yep.
completely flat and it's completely finished. It's just really interesting to compare and contrast the dichotomy between these two different photographs. So I'm gonna leave it there for right now. Some more fun facts, just real quick, about the Ute Young Hotel. They say it was designed to have 3,000 rooms, but I read another article that said it was designed to have 7,500 rooms. So this was going to be one of the most massive hotels, I'd say, in the entire world. And another interesting fact is the slope of the building. They say it's built on a perfect 75-degree slope on all sides, and they all slope inwards towards the apex of the building. So it definitely lends itself to this old world construction, or this very awkward, unexplainable construction. And noting the fact that we have no construction photographs, I just thought this was really interesting, and I wanted to share it with you. Basically, we have this massive unoccupied hotel that's now being used to basically send advertisements and messages to the people of North Korea. But back in the 80s and back in the 90s, this was going to be one of the most massive hotels and one of the most massive projects that North Korea or the USSR ever completed. So I just thought that was really interesting. I don't know if anybody else had ever heard about this hotel, but like I said, this is a request video. So I'm looking for construction photographs of this hotel, and I'm looking for ones before it stood as this massive pyramid shape. I want ones when basically it was at its lowest levels. So if you can find those, leave the links down below. I'd really appreciate it. And I thank you so much for being here. I thank you for sharing this channel, and I thank you for helping me to grow. So
They put that 5-point star at the very, very top.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, this was a quick one from Kingdom Within. He was just making some quick, like, little, he was visiting Boise, Idaho. So I thought I'd give him a shout out. Watch his video. He was just documenting some of them, like, mud flood buildings up in Boise.
It is said to be constructed in 1905,
Oh, it was a little low.
but possibly earlier than that. So I also wanted to point out this building here is the Idaho Law and Justice Learning Center. But what I wanted to point out was in front of these buildings that are this style, there's always a huge tree right in front of it. I don't know why that is, but yeah. There's a lot of stuff here in Boise. There's another building, I believe it's a church now, but it's to the right side of the Capitol. Yeah, it's right there. I believe it's a Methodist church now.
All those domes, columns, antennas on top of the domes. They all had it back in those towns.
They had to be pulling energy.
That building right there.
I'm 100% sure. Oh, Amy's present. Nice.
I love when she does that. Hey,
Welcome, Amy, and others. Looks like we got 5 viewers right now, so that's
A
cool.
lot of good stuff here. I believe Caleb.
This is Kingdom Within. He's in Boise, Idaho.
Streets of Trattoria. Would love
And I will say that I guarantee you that at the top of that building, let me get it in the view here, right here. I guarantee you 100% at the very top of this building, there used to be an antenna that went up here.
Yeah.
All like that. Because when you look at all the old photos, they all had that on top of the buildings. They've removed them from most of these buildings nowadays.
Would love this stuff. Would appreciate this area. Anyways,
Psalm 39 in the house.
that's
What's
about it
up?
for today. You guys
New viewer, welcome.
have a good one.
Well, Psalm 39, welcome in. This is a very casual truther video watch hangout stream. And I just got some stuff lined up in a quick Bible study at the end. So I'm about halfway through right now. And what do we got next? What is Antiquitech in 5 minutes from Paul Cook? This is pretty good. I watched this one. So we'll check this out.
Easy
Next.
tigers. I hope everyone's fine and dandy. This is just going to be another little quick cupcake of knowledge, not an in-depth session of any.
Oh, and I'd like to say if any of you guys have any questions or would like to comment on the videos, we can pause and talk about it, no problem. Is that antenna used to gather electricity? Yes, I believe so. Psalm 39, I believe it was. I believe the static electricity is what it harnesses, which is what we also call etheric energy. He's going to talk about it. Paul Cook's actually going to talk about it in this video right here. So let's just buckle up and let's watch this one and it'll explain more, I think.
Anything. This is going to be about Antiquitech. So we're just going to run through it just so people can get an idea, because you know it's like when you keep hearing words and you don't know what it is, you just dismiss the information. So I'm going to make these little segment videos that I want you to share the granny out of, to wake as many people up as possible. That's why I've done it. So Tartaria, Mud Flood, this one and a couple more, share the granny out of them on every platform possible. All right. What is Antiquitech? Right, so all these, you know, you've got all these structures covered with fancy carvings, intricate aerials, colossal commons, and enormous entries. Why is it all there? Why did our forefathers exert such a effort back in the old days with the best they had was horse and cart and pulley and levers? Let's just have a look. Certainly all that labour could have gone into more practical municipal or bettering humanity. No. Every great city contains intricate decorated monument architecture built at great expense. So I delved into the symbolic meaning of monuments and the city layouts, and with help of esoteric researchers like Michelle Gibson and people like that, this gave me my first clue that is reoccurring architecture was randomly or mere imitation. These elements all add up to something that involves power. Drawing electricity from the atmosphere would be relatively simple if your city was planned and buildings designed to properly attract, collect and dispense the accumulated current. It is being referred to as Antiquitech. It's on the roofs, the cathedrals, and all the churches, all the stuff on top of that, that's Antiquitech. Keep in mind, we're not talking about the conventional modern version of wired electricity used to run typical labour-saving devices. The concept of Antiquitech is the crafting of architectural forms to attract and distribute the natural static electrical charge present in the atmosphere, or the atmospheric etheric energy, a suitable force of nature that operates whether we believe it or not. At present, science has classified AEE as dark matter. So the theory goes that if properly harvested, Antiquitech could harness and channel AEE into buildings and public spaces to generate light, regulate temperature, and create an energy field to sterilise harmful bacteria. Certain buildings designed to harvest the kind of refined spiritual energy that creates a healthy, climate-controlled, well-lit environment for its occupants. To grasp the idea of how architecture can harness the power via AEE, let's first focus on the worship, cathedrals, mosques and synagogues, since they have the most obvious structures in any city that should generate a beneficial energy source. So the basic strategy of harvesting AEE is to build a nice tall tower, one or two or more, topped with aerials, hereafter referred to as Antiquitech, made of conductive material fashioned to attract the AEE charge from the atmospheric static electricity field and channel it into the structure. Please don't think.
Look at
it's
that
just a
symbol.
lightning
That's
rod. Remember,
weird.
conventional history insists that Benjamin Franklin was the first to install a lightning rod.
I just was, when I saw this earlier, I thought this was an interesting top on here. I mean, so you got the double cross, and then you've got the slanted piece through there, and then you've got the crescent piece at the bottom on top of the ball. So it's like, wow, that's, I mean, I do think this is Antiquitech right here. But it has all that religious significance that we've been, told.
Yeah.
But really, could this just be right here, just a way that they're harnessing the atmosphere better through these shapes? Surface area. I do believe surface area to mass ratio is a big part of it as well. Pretty much the more the better. Pretty much the more surface area, the better overall with these antenna devices.
Right. That reminds me of the Luciferian cross, the way it's got those two. I don't know for sure.
Well, I do know this double cross symbol at the top is also called the Baphomet for some reason, and I don't know why that is, but I know the Masons, when they wear this on their forehead, like on that cap they wear, it has that's called the Baphomet symbol. I also see it a lot with these Antiquitech antennas. It's very common on there. So.
In 1753, this structure predates Franklin by centuries, but is still pulling a charge because the Antiquitech appears to have a grounding wire or tape into it. If all those spires were just ornamentation, twisted spires like this one, this would make no sense. But the AEE harvesting theory throws new light behind the reasoning for building such structures. The second part of the formula is to accumulate AEE is to place a dome or steeple or both underneath the Antiquitech, the cables, and a huge clock is also.
So Psalm 39 says, is that a crescent moon like in Islam? Yes. Yeah, it is. That's what you would say nowadays when you see it. You would say, oh, you would relate it to Islam. But what I was kind of getting at was that they've put that meaning onto that symbol, whereas it might have just used to been common Antiquitech symbol, something that wasn't related to religion at all, is I think what I was trying to explain.
A common feature on these structures, possibly once functioning as a tuner for the more sophisticated Antiquitech. Now that all the AEE is gathered in the domed collector of the ceiling, it can be channeled into the building. One method uses metal rods attached to the dome that ends with a filament that glows when exposed to static current. So, in a nutshell, Antiquitech is the collection and the harvesting and distribution of atmospheric etheric energy, or AEE, or black matter. Okay, and it was used for good, it was used to heal, it was used for loads of things. And the same goes for our plane too. If you can see that our Earth, the ground, it's all been sculpted into frequency patterns. So these are to harness and collect energy from the Earth as well. So not only is it coming from the Earth, it's coming from the ether. There you go, in 5 minutes.
I agree with all of that. I pretty much agree with everything you said in the video.
One love.
I do think that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Thoughts? Let's see. DNA Bell says, if you look at it upside down, you see the ball and eagle. So let's go back to that. I'm not quite certain. Were you talking about this particular symbol, or was it one of the later ones in the video? Let's see. He says, if you look at it upside down, you see in the ball the eagle with wings open. By the way, this tower is crazy if that's real. Look at that thing. I've never seen that one before. Well,
yeah, they're hiding so much.
Oh, it was that symbol. Okay. It was that symbol. He was talking about this one. So he says, if you look at it upside down, you see in the ball the eagle with wings open. I kind of see what you're saying there.
Oh, yeah, how it's got that dark shading right there. That could just be, is that just shade, like the way the light's hitting the ball, that darker spot? Yes. Yeah, right there.
I don't think it really, I don't think that really means anything. Like, I don't think there's I don't know, there could be eagle relation here, but yeah, I do kind of see when you said eagle, like I guess it made me see eagle all of a sudden in this, but the ball, just so you guys know too, is most likely, a lot of researchers think that this is filled with mercury or red mercury, but even it could just be regular mercury. I don't even know if red mercury actually is real.
So what if we shot at one of those? What would happen?
If we shot at one, like what, with a gun? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like if you hit it with like a 50 cal and shot it. I mean, mercury's
you could
liquid, right?
still, they've probably removed all the mercury. I think that was one of the big projects, was when they were covering everything up, is they removed the mercury from, because if you look at the old lighthouses and you research a lot of the old lighthouses, they used to have tons of mercury up in those lighthouses, where the like the lens was. And they have some really lame explanation as to why they needed, 50 gallons of mercury up there. It obviously was an Antiquitech where they were able to just light those lighthouses without any sort of oil or have to burn any oil or anything like that. They were able to just generate light for free, basically, is what I believe, using mercury somehow. Yeah.
So you're saying I should drink some mercury and it would give me unlimited energy?
Definitely not medical advice I would give.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, we've got There's No Place Like Home. And this was somebody that originally Alan from Flat Earth Nation, aka Mud Flood Was Armageddon, had recommended. So I subbed to her, and she's made some pretty good stuff. She does a lot of homeschooling videos, but she's worth subbing to, I would say. And she came out with this one. She says, question the narrative, trees, titans, or melted buildings. So she's talking about all three topics in this one. And I will say that I will just upfront say that I agree with pretty much everything she says in this video. My opinion is the same as hers, I would say. So, but if you guys have any questions or anything while we're watching, feel free to ask.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Today's Question the Narrative video is called Trees, Titans, or Melted Buildings, because those are three explanations that we see here in this truth community when we are trying to explain what some of the larger formations that we see are. Now, a lot of times I'm showing buildings on my channel because I think that they're beautiful, but I have also been really interested in rock formations, in trees, just the things around us, because as my eyes have been opened, I have realized that things just aren't as they seem to be. A lot of times when I show things on my channel, pictures that I take while I'm out with my kids, I will get lots of varying opinions on them. For example, this right here, I have been told looks like a giant tree to some people. And I will admit that when I was there, I did say that it looked like petrified wood, while others believe that it could be a titan or some other kind of biological material, which of course a tree would also be biological. And some people have said that it is a melted building. And so what I've been trying to do is I've been trying not to put all of my eggs in one basket. This is just it feels like a rock and it's as heavy as a rock, but to me it looked like petrified wood. So I just took pictures of that. And those are just some rocks that I found in a stream that look an awful lot like petrified wood to me, which, kind of coincides with the theory that rocks are old trees. But what I was saying is that I've been trying not to put all of my eggs in one basket and to say that everything that is big, like all big mountains were trees. And I don't want to say all big mountains or formations were once melted buildings or they were all titans. I think that it's safe to say that it could be a variety of these things. It may not even be any of these things, but it certainly does look to me like all of those things are included in our environment and we just have been lied to about them. But I think that we need to be careful to just I don't want to just say that everything is only in one category and then scoff at everyone who believes anything else, because I think that, yeah, we're going to see little bits of everything here. So most of you recognize this. This is Devil's Tower, and they will usually tell us that this was a formation that happened from a volcano. And there are a lot of people who believe that this is a giant tree stump. And you have to think to yourself, well, if that's a giant tree stump, who cut that down? Now, there are others like Roger from Mud Fossil University who believe that this is actually an ankle from a giant. Now, I believe there's a video called I think it's There Are No Forests on Flat Earth. I think that's what it's called. But it shows lots of really good examples of what we see as typically mountains or mesas, and that they really do look like huge ancient trees. Here's another example of some mesas, and if you look at them with new eyes, they certainly do look like they could be the remains of giant petrified trees, because they even do break down the same way that wood does, that bark does. A great channel for this is Hangman 1128. All the channels that I mentioned today, I'll leave in the description box. He has great information about all of these things. He goes out into the mountains and he shows you specifically smaller size trees, and then he shows you what people look at as huge rocks, and he shows you, no, these are actually exactly the same as these little trees. They're just, 10 times bigger. So when we look at these things with new eyes, we need to realize that we might not be right on our first guess. And that's what this is really all about. It's about exploring all of the possibilities and not automatically jumping into one idea and then kind of just pushing everything off to the side because you think that you already have it all figured out. Because I at least know that I probably won't ever have any of this figured out. At least, not in my lifetime. I will not have this figured out. But I still think that it's interesting to look into. And I think that it's important that we do this in a time that we're lied to constantly. So here are just some more formations. And if you look, they'll tell us now, these are rocks. This is a mesa. Looks to me, though, again, like, this could be ancient wood. But then you will get people who also believe that it could be a melted building. And, you never know. It really could be. I'm going to show you some pictures of that things that are definitely melted. I was going to say mounted, melted buildings, and other things that look like it certainly could be. This is the Colossus, and Roger Spur at Mud Fossil University has actually done an analysis of this, of the interior of this, and he has found that it is biological. I believe that he even found blood there. Some of the things that a lot of times we look at as that we look at and see as rust. Well, it is rust because of the iron, but he said that was actually dried blood. And so this is another thing that we can look into. But again, it's just one of those things where sometimes this could be the case. And other times it doesn't mean that it is always going to be Titans or that it is always going to be ancient trees. And that's what I'm really trying to get across, because I have seen a lot of people who they are 100% for only one hypothesis. And maybe that's not really the best thing that we should be doing. So obviously, this is carved, or most people would look at this as carved, or as in Roger Spur's analysis, he believes that this actually was once a Titan. So no one's going to look at this and say, well, that's a mountain, because it's clearly not.
Joel or anyone in chat comments on this picture?
My first thing was, I've heard Alan talk about the glittering sword thing a lot, and I still haven't studied it. I need to. But
the glittering sword is very real. It's just I'm not convinced that it was necessarily that all rocks are body parts and that it was used during the flood to, freeze them in judgment. That's something that he says, but I haven't seen any scripture that backs that up.
Well, I didn't even know that part that you just said. All I know is the term glittering sword. So the first thing I thought was, like, is this an actual giant that, that was an actual giant that somehow was like petrified?
Roger Spur claims that this is an actual giant that was basically, he was originally in a huge sunk into the mud, or the mud surrounded him, and then he was encased in the mud, and then over time, through transition metals, essentially over all the years, as the metals in the biological thing transition and petrify, it gets replaced with the minerals that are in the soup of whatever it's encased in. So this mud soup that it was like in for all of those years after the flood turned it into this, what we see today. Is what this, now this is again the theory of Roger Spurr. Now Wise Up says this is not, he says this is not an actual mud fossil. He thinks this is just like a statue or something like that. Still went through like the whatever happened, but if this was, you know, originally not like a real human. So there's different opinions on this particular picture. It certainly is very realistic. The muscle ripples, the way everything, looks quite like it could be a mud fossil, but I'm just don't know on this one myself personally.
Well, I would wonder, like, how fast would the body break down into skeleton form? Like, I guess.
Well, that's the thing. The flesh has to be captured inside of this. Essentially, it creates a imagine like a micro environment gets created around this organic. So normally we think of a flesh body decaying and breaking down, like you said, and everything like that. But if it's put into like, let's say it's put into a container of sorts to where,
so it's like encapsulated,
it's encapsulated, it's under pressure, and then it's like it can be then petrified in that particular soup. That's the way I describe it.
Almost like a mummy wrap of mud or whatever.
Like a mud soup, yeah, but like a hot mud soup, like it's probably a very, very hot one. Or I mean, during the flood, I don't know how hot the waters were. It doesn't say in the Bible. They could have just been normal temperature, room temperature water, but just all that flood and pressure, or I'm sorry, all that mud and all that dirt and pressure just could have caused the petrification process. Or the glittering sword could have touched the waters and done things. You know, I don't know. It doesn't say that in the Bible. It does not talk about the glittering sword touching the waters or anything like that. So I've looked for that. But it certainly references it in many, many, many other locations. In fact, many of the places in the Bible where it uses the word sword, we can actually call it the glittering sword. Whereas we used to just think of it as like humans with sword. But there's many like verses I found where it's like, if you understand it's talking about the glittering sword, it's talking about God. He says he's going to use his sword. He always talks about the sword. I'll bring the sword against you, you know. So he's got that. And Ezekiel talks about it. He describes it. He saw it. It was like a lightning. It's like a sword of lightning, pure lightning. And he just uses it. He can just, you know, it's obviously insanely powerful. So, anyway, we'll continue with the video here.
So if it was not carved, the only other choice would be if it were actually a Titan. And when I say Titans, I do have to say that it doesn't necessarily always mean like human-like Titans. There was a channel called Stellium. Is it Stellium 7? I'm sure that some of you will correct me because I actually do subscribe to it. I just can't remember the name of it. And actually did a series of videos about what looks to be a petrified elephant, gigantic elephant, but an elephant nonetheless. So it's not always the human-like Titans that we would think of. This definitely does look like a face, though, here. Another one. Now, some people might think that maybe this was carved, and other people will tell you that no, this is actually another petrified Titan. You can see the ear in here, you can see the eye in here, and I think that when he did the analysis on this, I believe he was pointing out how intricate even the eyes were on that. And then here we have, this is not the one, I don't think this isn't the one that was in the Stellium 7 channel, but this is clearly, actually, no, sorry, this is in Iceland. And this is clearly an elephant, or it certainly looks like an elephant. So here's another example of something that, you know, we're told this is a cliff. But, and we're so many times told to write off what our first impression tells us. A lot of times we're made to feel that we're silly if we look at things and see things as they are. But have you ever thought to yourself that maybe that is really just to turn us off the path? And maybe we do really need to start trusting our eyes more often. So lastly, I just wanted to go into the melted buildings aspect of it, because a lot of people will tell you that mountains all come from melted buildings. And what I will say is that some mountains can come from melted buildings. I also believe that some mountains may have been ancient trees, some mountains may have been titans, and other mountains may have been what are called spoil tips. So I have a photo here. You'll notice that my video today is not going to be as long as the other ones. I still don't have my desk back. I still am pet sitting, so I have a tank sitting on my desk. So I'm actually sitting on the floor right now. It's not very comfortable. So my video today is probably not going to be very long. But anyway, this, I believe, is a spoil tip. Now, what a spoil tip is it is a man-made mountain where they put the mining waste into a huge pile, and a lot of times it will turn out looking like a conical volcano. Now, in this case, this obviously doesn't look like a volcano, but if you could see that the mountains around this, they are all a different color than this one. This is actually red. They say it is red shale, and there is a zinc mine behind this hill. So I believe that this may have been a spoil tip, or that it is a spoil tip. And I think that some mountains are that too. And I think that maybe some mountains really are just that, mountains, because mountains are described, I think it's 57 times in the Bible, and they're never called anything else to my knowledge. And they all, they all seem to have very, very much significance when it comes to that. So maybe some things really are just mountains. But yeah, there really is evidence of melted buildings, melted castles. We don't know for sure what happened. Some people believe that it could have been a direct energy weapon. There certainly was some form of a catastrophe that would have caused this melting to happen. And today, I'm not even going to speculate on what it could have possibly been. My whole point of this video today was just to help us to realize that sometimes we don't need to get so caught up in one idea and then we just completely forget about everything else that it could be. So this is, this is in Turkey, Cappadocia, Turkey. And yeah, now, they will tell you that these were carved into the rock, but it certainly does look like it could have been melted. This is Castle Rock, and they will tell you that it is just a rock, although they did name it after a castle. There have been some really, these arrows are just showing what they are calling ash layers, so it's not really relevant to what we're talking about today. But there are some people who have done closer examinations of Castle Rock and have found that these certainly do look like they're columns, and some of them are extremely even, extremely symmetrical, and they do seem to be consistent with something that was once a castle. Now, there are some people who think that maybe it wasn't necessarily a melted castle. It could have possibly been erosion. So that's something else that we could really think about. This is in the South Dakota Badlands. And the first thing that I saw when I looked at this actually reminds me of pyramids. It reminds me a lot of what you see in the Grand Canyon. So possibly not castles per se in this particular photo, although I may be missing some, but look at that closer. But, I could be wrong, and this could just be a natural rock formation, or it could be old trees. We just have to go back to that again. We're not really sure what it is. We're just pondering these things right now. And this is one of those things that looks like it could possibly be either a melted city or an eroded city, some sort of destruction possibly. And this is also the South Dakota Badlands as well. And this one to me, I don't know, this really seemed to me more like a building. Like I said, in the other photo, they look more like pyramids to me, but this one does seem like it could be a very old building that is eroded, possibly petrified, because, someone just posted a photo on Twitter the other day of a ladder that half of it was actually petrified into rock. So we do know that things do petrify over time. And so this is one of those things that, yeah, I would like to visit here sometime. I probably will never get to visit there, but it looks like it could definitely be some sort of building formation. And this is El Sillar in Bolivia. And this one also, look at this in the background. That to me, and not just the background, this is, obvious, but I'm just going to start in the background here. This really does look like it could be a city that was destroyed. And now other people might look at this and they might say, well, that also looks like it could be an ancient tree. And it could be. And I think, again, I mentioned it earlier, but when Roger talks about mud fossils being biological organisms, I think we need to remember that, yeah, trees are biological. So that's always something to remember. And yeah, this also looks like it could be a melted building as well. So if anything, if you take anything out of this video today, it's really just that I think that we need to appreciate that our world is so much more interesting than what we have ever really thought of, at least that I have ever really thought of. When we're in school or in the news or any other place where we get our mainstream information, we are told such mundane explanations for the things that we see around us. But when you actually take the time to look into these things, you start to realize that the things that we're told are possibly not the way things actually are. And the world that we're living in right now may be more interesting than we ever would have imagined it to be. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would.
I really like the end of that video where she talks about how they could just be mountains. That's the fourth possibility. And I agree, because I can prove using scripture that there were mountains on earth before the flood. That is 100% fact. So, they could just be mountains just made by God. I mean, who else made the mountains? We don't know. Where they essentially, when he created the earth, he could have definitely made mountains, in the very beginning. Cool. We got like 6 viewers right now. It's awesome. Welcome everyone. Vic's in the house. We got Yaswil Soren in the house. We got Psalm 39, who is a new person, kind of listener to this kind of stuff, maybe. Just so you know, Psalm 39, I do believe, and most of us here in the chat pretty much think that Armageddon is over, the golden age is past, which would be the 1,000 years millennial reign of Jesus Christ. Some of us, some don't believe that it was a physical reign on earth. Some believe he did it from heaven. Actually, I've been reading more. We're going to touch on that later. We do believe that we're in the time where Satan was loosed after the 1,000 years is complete, and that Gog, and what is going to happen now is essentially there's going to be a camp of the saints and beloved city that is going to be compassed about by the forces of Gog and Magog, which is going to be pretty much most of the population of the world. Anyone who's not a Christian is pretty much going to be included in that, I think, and they're going to all be gathered and brought around, and then that's before Judgment Day occurs. So that's kind of the time that we're in right now. And just to give you a quick explanation, if you didn't know, that's where we're coming from, or at least where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I would agree.
Joel's coming from there too.
Are you still here, Psalm 39?
Yeah, I don't know if they're there, but they were there just a minute ago in the chat, so a few minutes ago. All right, next video, guys. We're pretty far through here. We're like at least 80% through the stream right now. So if you missed the earlier stuff, you can always go back and watch the stream later. Next up, we got Wise Up. Almost all statues were originally wood, since calcified. So we'll watch this one.
Like on this side, you can see where they've dug sections out and taken them away. Over here, they dug sections out and prop them up, with wood to hide things. And all this stuff gets removed over time, bit by bit, until all you're left with is just a pile of mud, right? But what I'm getting at here is look, you've been told, and I believed, that these were actually caused by weathering. Okay. These ridges were caused by weathering. And I'm going to say now that they're not. This is actually structural. It's actually like floors. Yeah. It's collapsed structure, just like these, but bigger, that have collapsed down on each other and then got covered over in mud and clay. And that's actually what you're looking at. Because when you look at it, you can actually see the structure inside this thing. If you don't believe me, go to my Google page and take a closer look. This is the type of thing I'm talking about. This is not being carved. It's an imprint of how this thing was built. Okay. The Sphinx head. Can you see this framework here? It's actually a frame, and that frame bit there actually runs all the way around here, like that. Can you see the rim of that? Actually runs all the way around and joins up with that. It's framing, girders and beams. It's a built structure, and the evidence for that is on this one image. Yeah, I have got something else that I wanted to show you tonight. I've got these images up on my Google page for over a week now. And we're just getting around to showing you it and checking over what I was going to show you before I actually did it. Yeah. So you can go check the images and the video from Brian Forrester, which is this one. It's called Lost Ancient High Technology Artifacts, the Cairo Museum of Egypt. And I just want to show you this. This video may not stay on my channel for too many days because it's nothing major. It's not working, but anyway.
This is the ultimate smoking gun. No content. I dropped the mic. As was.
Right, so you've just heard this so-called expert called Stephen Mailer from the chematology group, and he's called this artifact the ultimate smoking gun. Well, he's just rested his hat on top of this, right? And he's talking about this being some softening of stone, which I've got into as being crap, and a high technology saw and all this going down here. That this artifact is being done so poorly, it's obviously being done by hand with an handsaw, right? And you're going to see a line down here shortly, which has been gouged out without even putting it up against a straight edge, is how poorly this thing was done. The civilization that created this, because I'm saying it was wood, right? It was buried wherever, leached material from the Great Flood or whatever it was, and it's turned into this material, right? I know you don't like what I've just said, but I'm going to show you an artifact after this, which you should see, right? So just wait. But you can see how wonky this is, right? It's ridiculous. I'll show you an image shortly that shows you how badly that's been done. So we'll move on.
Said in the previous clip by Stephen Mailer, whoever was operating this saw made a mistake. The saw went off course. Very human trait. This, and then this large granite box has tube drills. You see?
Right, he's just said that this is a large granite box. This stuff here is exactly the same as what the box is made out of in the Great Pyramid and the walls, right? And I'm telling you that this stuff here on the screen now was once wood. I don't know if it was a wood that doesn't exist anymore. Something happened to the environment that changed this stuff into this, or if it's leached material from being buried or whatever, or is it just crushed wood? Yeah, loads of bits of different types of wood all crushed, because that is a joint. It's a joint what we make today, and you stick another joint of wood in there, right? And if there's any joiners out there that want to know exactly what I'm talking about,
I kind of consider the Wise Up to be like the master of explaining things that used to be wood that are now stone. He's like one of the best, I think, out there.
Yeah, I don't know much about him right now.
He's I don't know. You'd have to go back and watch a lot of his videos, but he's really stuck on this topic like for years and years and years, and put out tons of content on this particular topic of how a lot of what we see today that we call stone, old ancient stone structures, were actually originally constructed of wood, and they have become petrified through the events of the past.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then he's able to pretty much conclusively show you how that's true.
Well, we're going to go a bit further.
The little tube drill holes there. Again, you're talking at least diamond tip technology.
Diamond tip technology. So that's Brian Forrester there. So we'll have a look at this. So this is the back side of that box here. We were looking at it down there. That's that poorly scratched outline. And you can see just how bad this is being done, right? And it was not, and just look how bendy and wavy it is down there. So it wasn't a machine that did this, because it would have cut straight down there in a perfect line, right? It wouldn't have been wonky like this, would it? And it couldn't even do it in a full piece. They had to do it in sections. And that's why it's lumpy here. Just look at this material, this stone, whatever it is now. Wasn't always insulating now. But it's this next artifact really that I want to get into quickly, right? Like I say again, the box in the Great Pyramid is made out of the exact same stuff as this, and this was wood, and not too long ago. So if there's any joiners out there in the comment section, right, I want you to back me up on what I'm showing here, because clearly another piece of wood went in this joint. And can you see where it's darker around the corners, where these drills, and they weren't tube drills, by the way, they were just normal drills, couldn't get into the corner, because, you literally glue another piece of wood into this joint. That's why it's white, right? And it was like a joist, something that held a roof up, or a beam, or something like that, right? No different to this sort of thing. Right? So again, if there's any joiners out there, I want you to back me up on what I'm talking about here. And this joint connection here is exactly the same as the beard area on the statue in Tanis. Yeah. Remember when I showed you that it had 3 different levels of connections, and then there was a butterfly joint that the thing clipped into when it got damaged before turning into stone, right? These, like on the beard of the statue there, Tanis, where I showed you was made in pieces. And this is what I meant by it, like a butterfly clip, a locking key. And these apparently have been found through the ancient world, made from copper. And could never actually understand why you would be making little locking keys made from copper to hold such weights as 10 ton and more with just little pieces of copper. It made no sense to me at all because they were breaking. Yes, copper does bend like gold, but still there's not enough metal there, people. Most of them will have been actually wood, right? So when I pointed you these stones all over the place, rocks, which are actually imprints of these things, don't always think that, oh, there's a locking key there, butterfly clip, it must have had copper in it. No, because I can tell you now, 9 times out of 10, they were made out of wood, because wood also bends and it expands as this gets wet and heat, okay? That's why they're made from wood, and probably even a specific wood. This is just a closer example of the locking key on the statue's beard. How, what got me onto this new paradigm, which I have to thank a few people for. But anyway, there's a closer look at that. These images you can also go check on my Google page again, this second album. We'll be joining this together with this, with the part 1 there, rather than have 2 videos. And again, it depends how long things have been buried, where they've been buried, whether or not they were buried in mud, sand, lime, how damp it was, and how long, and what the material was made out of in the first place. Okay, will determine what it either petrifies into, leaches from, or leaves an imprint of. This is another one of those artifacts in a museum where they say it's been carved out, CNC'd or something out. I don't think this one has. I think this is turned into this material. It's almost like a mud rock, isn't it, when you actually look at it? It is just like a mud rock. Everything about it. The main problem and reason why I'm showing you this album now is in the last video that...
All right, this particular picture right here is super interesting. I've never seen it before until I saw this video. But do you guys have any comments on what we're looking at here?
Yeah, how big is that?
It looks very large. These statues, it would be nice to have a frame of reference, like a real human standing there. I would have to say each of these statues is probably 5 times the size of a normal human, at least, maybe 10.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing, but I can't tell without a reference. But just based on this cliff, the way it looks, how big it looks, I don't know. But I just think this is like crazy looking right here, man. I mean, this is straight up Armageddon. It has Armageddon written all over it, if you ask me.
Yeah.
There. On tennis. I made a throwaway comment right at the end and just left it at that. These statues here were found in this condition. There's been others found in the same type of, rubble, right? And they will be moving around, rocks rubbing over them. And what devastation took place to actually put these here in the first place, right? So how much damage do you think would be on these statues, even if they would have been made from stone in the first place, which I'm trying, I proved to you that they weren't. How much damage do you think should be on these things?
Okay, and so see how they're like encased in the mud? So he's saying these were originally wood, these statues, okay? And that now they've turned into stone because of the petrification process they went through. But you can see how they're buried in this like mud substance, and that's through, I guess I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of fascinated by what I'm
It's okay, you don't have to talk much, it doesn't matter. It's just, I just wanted to point that out to everyone that's listening.
So think about that for a few seconds, because this artifact that I'm going to show you shortly, this is actually a site in France, and this is wood, Don't know how old this is, but you can see what I'm trying to get at here. It's mainly turned into like a mud rock here because this will have been buried in mud, right? More clay than anything else. And why it's turned into something like this rather than the artifacts I'm showing you. Yeah, so those statues, this one's slightly different, but the next one isn't. I've actually got it, but again, the coloration down here, you can probably see that it is actually metamorphic rock, wood, petrified wood, right? And when you take a closer look at this stuff, right, this is important, you know, what I'm going to say to you now. They always come out with, and I used to say this as well to people, that these statues, we haven't got this technology because when they CNC this stuff down, it stays shiny, and it stays shiny for thousands of years. And the granite that we process goes dull after a decade. And yet this stuff, when they made it, why is it still shining to this very day? Well, I've just shown you where these things came from. So, and why is the face that sticks out more in that condition compared to the chest? It looks like wood underneath. I'll tell you what I think it is. It looks like it's been sprayed to me, right? By, you know, the controllers, the falsifiers, archaeologists, whoever they are, have sprayed this thing with some type of like radiator paint, some type of metal spray. Can you see it? And they will do it every now and then, and that's why you get the shine on it and why it lasts so long. There's a look at that area there. This is an amazing image. It wasn't in the last video, this. And like these bowls here, it just looks like some type of natural rock, this. You know, I mean, you wouldn't be making bowls out of rock anyway. It's just too heavy, but just look at the depth of this surface that's over it. And then it's softer inside there. That's something different, I think. But then when you look at this, I mean, this is about, I don't know, 2 millimeters thick. This stuff over it, I don't know if this is some type of lacquer or if this is being caused by the flood. But underneath here, you can see how this has been built in sections. Because if it wasn't, it wouldn't be revealing a circular imprint of how this thing was built, like with bars and then things built onto it. This part here has, for some reason, been knocked down here, there, and somehow it didn't damage the rest of the structure. And you can see an imprint there. When you go check the image, look at right there, and you will see a wooden beam, an imprint of a wood or metal beam that runs down the center of this section here too, okay? This thing here, well, that's a different artifact, I suppose, and you can see where the arms get jammed into here. But this thing in Egypt, if you look at where the leg has been knocked off, it's actually white. So this is like some sort of plaster, which is I presented 3 different paradigms, didn't I, in the last video of how these things have been made. But yeah, it's white wherever this gets knocked off because there's no natural rock anywhere that's just black with no grain or even bits on it. It's some type of lacquer or spray, or it turned like this during the flood, but this is plaster underneath here. Some type of plaster. This artifact, to me, just looks like some sort of like paper mache, you know, but done with wood, crushed wood, right? It's been crushed into the shape, and then they've painted it or lacquered it or something like that. When you go check this image, if you look down here at the chin, you can see just still how this has been built in sections, repaired. It's actually on this side, you can actually see, like I was pointing out in the last video, it's right there anyway. But just look at it. I mean, this hasn't been CNC'd, has it? You know, both sides are just different, completely different, both sides. I'm getting into that moment anyway. That's in India, this is in Egypt, and that to me, I think it's some type of ebony wood. Or it's against just some sort of lacquer, because we, you know, even today we haven't got a CNC machine that you could just move this artifact around, you know, on a beam.
Just so you guys know, a CNC machine is like a kind of like a 3D printer, basically. Very similar to that, where you can cut out really complex pieces and stuff like that that are from a computer design, and essentially then the robot cuts the pieces for you and everything to an exact shape.
And have a CNC machine just come in at all angles and cut all these little fine pieces out. It doesn't even exist now, right? I think it's some sort of wood, and it shows. This here is obviously wood, again with some sort of lacquer over it, because this black stuff just doesn't exist, does it? But in the areas where it's got damaged, you can see it is in fact wood.
Yeah, so he's saying they didn't need CNC machines,
this is actually plastic,
which is one of the theories
so
that a lot of researchers will put forward.
Or clay. That's that black stuff again. When you come and check this one here, have a look at the hat. You know, material thing that they put over the heads, because this has been built in sections, and if you look down there, there's actually a plate where they could take this off and replace it. It's right there. What I'm saying is, if this were natural wood or even rock, it would not, you know, leave a plate all the way around there in a perfect line and leave this bottom bit and top bit, right? It's because it's been built in sections. This find is, I don't know, about a year ago, 2 years ago. It's this area here, because one of the comments on the last video, as people were saying some of this stuff could have actually been something like polystyrene. You know, something like that. And when you look at this stuff here, this just doesn't add up to me. It just looks like fiberglass. You know, I'm not joking. It looks like fiberglass. It's all the way through it. And it's exactly the same as this. That's the artifact I've just had up screen. This thing here, if you look around it, it's broken, hasn't it? And if you look around it, there's I mean, it looks to be about 2 inch thick almost. This.
I will comment right now and say that this is not what the inside of a rock would look like if you were to break it open. So when you break open, 99% of rocks will not have this interior that looks like this. That's all porous like that. Now there are porous rocks and rocks with, like, you know, tons of like cavities inside of them and everything. Like I'm just saying, it won't look like this picture what we're showing. So he's onto something here, I think.
Lacquer stuff that goes rock hard that they've put over it, but it's the exact same stuff as this. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but it's not natural rock, is it?
If you crack if you crack basalt open, it does not look like that surface. Maybe the outside of the basalt rock could potentially be bashed into that kind of a pattern. But if you were to crack the middle of the basalt open, I'm telling you, it won't look like that. It won't. All right, so this video's got about 6 minutes. I guess we'll let it run here. No, that's cool. I mean, I'm glad you're chiming in. Don't worry, I'm not attacking, but I'm just telling you. I know for a fact. Like I honestly, I'm a rock hound, and oh, Stu is up in the house. Nice, man. Holy smokes, we were just talking about you, Stu. We were talking about you earlier in the stream, man. But yeah, shucks full. I'm gonna go back to that picture here at the end of the video. We're gonna look at it one more time. Actually, here it is right here. All right, hang on. I'm gonna bring it back. All right, let's just look at this for a second. Shoot. All right. I'm just gonna make a really quick point. The way that this surface of this interior of this broken statue, you can see that obviously the outside's been smooth. Like he said, what he's proposing that this is not like a normal rock on the inside. If you were to crack one of these things and this is what you get on the inside, what I'm trying to tell you is that he's right. This is not what the inside of a rock would look like. Any rock that I've ever basically seen would have this particular texture, because you can see that it's like a smoothed out type of texture. Obviously there could have been wear and tear on this thing after it was cracked, but if, let's say, this was just freshly cracked open and this is what you saw, I agree with him that that doesn't look like any normal rock I've ever seen when you crack it open. So that's all I'm saying, and I'll move on from that. Yeah, I definitely do think they were. There's something about the noses, yeah. I mean, it's hard to ignore how they kept breaking them off.
What's that cliche people say where they're like, "Oh, you're so stubborn, you'd cut off your own nose to spite your face," or something?
Yeah, there is that saying. It's interesting. I never thought of that one in regards to the the noses being taken off the statues. It's obviously to hide something. There is a reason for it.
It's so weird. Someone just comes along, like breaks off the nose. Yeah, there's got to be a reason.
There's absolutely a reason, because you just see it so often. Looks like Isabel Alive is in the house. Welcome. The Bible does speak of their idols being made of wood and of stone. It repeatedly talks, and metal as well. Gold, silver, precious metals. This is the part of Wise Up's video where he just shows you a bunch of images and doesn't explain anything, and you're all confused about what he's trying to show you. Seriously, he does it in like every video, I swear.
Well, with the toes cut off, this could be a mafioso connection here. We might be.
Clay plaster now turned to metal. Okay. It looks like Michael Jackson. Dude, I got 11 truthers in the house watching right now. That's nice. All right, so we're getting pretty close to done here, actually. But I might, if you guys want, since I got 11 truthers in the house, I really do want to actually show you a couple of his older, not older, he just made them videos, but they're real good, man. They're real good. They deal a lot with the mud fossil skulls and whatnot, and the Sphinx as well. It's all real good stuff. I feel like I kind of just want to keep watching these last two videos before we get to the Bible study now. So for anyone that can't stick around right now, just watch this stream later. There's still going to be some good stuff here at the end as well.
Is because we'll start with this. So this is obviously where your ankle bone, your leg bone will go into it. If indeed this was a foot, right? Well, you would expect to see something like that. And this here, whether this is the bone that's been smashed back or something like that. And that rock, if it was like a natural rock, just does not form shapes like this, which I said might be some type of strap. So I will get into that shortly. I put this in just to show you that for those people that think that this site is fake, because there are a few, like it's been constructed as a fake site, literally. So this, some of the oldest images that we've got, and this is the heel stone, and it's not changed much. That's to show you how big it is. I suppose this woman's about 5 foot tall. So you can imagine how big that foot is. I suppose it's about the same size as the image I started with there.
Joel, audio's still pretty good for you?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
I don't want to get into too much detail on it like I did in the last video. I just want to move on. They do look like toes, and I said that this will be the shoe. I said it was something, something like a sandal. I don't know exactly what sort of shoe it was. I'm just saying, it would be something like that. Because again, a natural rock would not leave a rim like that. Because if it was something like a sandal or a shoe, you would have a rim running around it like that. And then some type of material inside, yes. So you've got that. You've got the bone that I pointed out earlier. So this is the ankle bone here. Okay. And then obviously you've got the toes. And I found, I realized this after watching the Stone Age video that I made almost immediately. As I was saying, that it might have been some sort of sandal, because, you know, the mud fossil crowd thinks that the entire thing is a foot. Well, these holes here, these holes here could in fact be where a strap, well, it's on the next image. What I'm showing you here is, I think you can see this because I can see it on the camera. If you look at that.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, if the giants were fossilized, turned into mud fossils, they probably had clothing, right? So they were wearing clothing of some sort, and that would have also been probably petrified along with them. I do think that's true.
Yeah, it looks like a strap, and what I'm getting at. Yeah. Right, so if you can imagine that these are some type of sandal, yeah, and you see the strap that joins onto the actual shoe itself, that goes through your toes, could indeed be that, yeah, those holes there, which were thought to be something else. And you see the strap and buckle, it's right there, or it appears to be. There's no other shapes across this entire artifact that look like that. And it's just in the right place. So again, how many points does something need to be the same as something that you're showing before you actually call it that? How can you be sticking your fingers in lava and molding this into a head? Yeah, but it's not. We'll get down here shortly. Because to make a mold, you actually have to do it in two halves. Yeah, so you do it in a half and then you do the other half, right? And there's little holes like the nose and other things that you will pick up on that wouldn't come out in the mold because it would just pull the material out. But again, it has to be in two halves. This is the back of it, and not many people have seen this, but this thing is actually hollow. It's hollow all inside here, so it can't be a mold, can it? But what are these things here and this, right? Well, this is what made me go against this being a mold in the first place, which caused a bit of a ruckus back then. This is a body part. This is petrified bones for some reason. You know, why it's all fused together in one piece, I don't know why. I'm not here to answer that. What I'm answering in this video is whether this is a molding of basalt. This is a shoulder blade. Okay, so remember the shape, you'll see more of that. This is the pelvic area around here, and this. Right, and yeah, you can see these here. At first I thought that this area might have been some, you know, the pelvic area down here. That's the front and that's the back. But obviously, you know, it's too big, isn't it? You've seen the size of the head on the front, so this has to be something else. And I think I had, well, this is the cervical. Your skull actually goes on here. The reason why I said that the heads actually fell free, especially if they were inside helmets as well, they would survive. If indeed some of them were real, which I think some of them were. The reason why I've left the images on my YouTube channel. So this is the back of the thing again that's hollow, and it's this area. You see that shape there? It's the shoulder blade. It looks like this thing got squashed, pulverized, dropped off a building. I don't know what happened to it, and some of it rotted away and petrified. Because some of it's got the shape of the head, hasn't it? But yet the back of it just looks like bones. That's what I think that area is. These are vertebrae, and these are not fingerprints, are they? But the shape,
I like this picture a lot.
Okay, but the main thing that I want you to remember here, because this is extremely important, is what put me onto the fact that they're not fingerprints, that they are in fact vertebrae, because there's actually a ridge around these. All vertebrae have got a ridge in the middle, yeah, that runs around it. Can you see it? Right. Because that's that ridge that runs around there. You see this area here that they say is like fingerprints from a giant? That is a vertebrae that's, for whatever reason, embedded and fused together in all this bone matter. That looks like a part of the hip, but that is a vertebrae, and you can see the rim that runs round, same as that, and you see that hole there that's now filled in. It's into the same material as this. It's that hole there. That is a vertebrae. It's snapped there. You can see it. That hole is that hole there. That's a fact. So this must be bone material. It's not basalt, right? And this head here is what put me onto when I went my own way and thought, well, maybe the South American heads are real, because the pupils, right?
This one's really good, I think.
A head like this and carve hole and carve a hole where the, you know, in the eye where the pupil is, but when you look down here, it actually looks like it's had its head ripped off or fallen off. Yeah, where it joins onto your skull.
I do think that's a real head, a real giant's head.
Such as this area here.
I also think that
they had helmets on, and there used to be a bolt there, which is actually pushed into its skin and bulged this area out. So this can't have been stone, because it's bulged that area out as this thing pushed through and got ripped. You can see that. And it's white, isn't it? It's the same material as what I've just been showing you. This is another one that I think were real. Yeah. Because
That's
when you go search
definitely
these
real.
heads, you know, look,
I mean, that
8
looks
times out
really
of 10,
real.
you will be looking at artifacts that have been reproduced and sent to museums and gardens across the world, right? Most of them are just replicas of these things, okay? These are the originals. This thing, look how its
I think
nose
that
is
one's real.
rotted off, and you can actually see, I mean, it's hollow inside, and look at his expression. It looks like he'll wearing a visor. It's got all this burn matter all over it, like it's been hit with some type of plastic
I think
floor,
that one's real.
or something similar to what had happened at Sodom and Gomorrah, because there were 5 other cities that were hit, or 5 countries. I mean, I think it happened in many more areas than what we've been led to believe or even told about. That's the hole in the eye again, and it just looks melted, like it's been hit with something. Same with this one. When you look at these original ones, they're actually white. All this stuff down here that's not, you know, got dirty is actually white, like the first artifact that I showed you. Again, it looks like it's been in some event like Sodom and Gomorrah. I'll show you stuff you've never seen before, but it's a mound, and these are the so-called giant tombs, which I've said they're not tombs. Every rock, every stone in here is a mud fossil remains or dried out bones of this giant, just like any of these sites. Yes, they are tombs of a giant, but mainstream archaeology, you know, will tell you and show you artists and, you know, images, renditions of these once being a tomb, right? A building of a tomb, but they're not. They're just remains, the mud fossils of this creature. Some of it's come above ground or been dug up, and then they've turned it into a headstone tomb area. And they're all of a similar shape, but anyway, you can see its head and its body, its ribs and its arms, its spine. So, you know, I suppose this thing is well, eroded away. You know, it's not so much a mud fossil, it's mainly just dried out bones by the looks of it, because you can see its spine I'm guessing. Its arms and its legs, and then its feet. Yeah. Same on the other side. And what I mean by that is those are the lines. That is what's under this mound, and that's why it's being fenced off. Because at the end of the day, it's just a lump in a field, and it's being left for a specific reason, right? Because the archaeology,
that fencing is weird.
People who run this world won't allow this thing to be dug up and just ran over and risk it being found out for what it really is, right? I'll show you it one more time. Because that's what I believe that we're looking at there.
What's he saying that one is? Petrified foot in a boot. Okay. Those are some pretty good pictures he had there, actually. I tend to think that this is melted buildings, but
yeah,
he's going for mud fossil on that one, which is interesting, I guess. All right, that was a pretty good one right there. There's one last video here. Let's see, 19 minutes.
Here's Johnny.
One more Wise Up video, guys. I'm a fanboy. I know. But he has been putting out some pretty good stuff lately, so I've been wanting to show these and talk about them a little bit, in case you haven't seen them.
Actually, that's what they are. If you can't write a human being,
sorry.
These are actually
he's talking twice. Sorry.
And
I thought I was
squeezing
messing
it into shape. Ball. That's what they say that this is turned into now. It's the pieces I've just been showing you. So this fingerprint of this humanoid is absolutely enormous, because that's what that is. It absolutely is, and it's the reason why I started this channel. The second video I made, you can go back and look, and it was, 2.5 years ago, I made a video specifically on this artifact because nobody else had shown it before, and it's absolutely obvious what it is. This actually could have been the middle finger, and the pointing finger has left that imprint there, as this thing has been squeezed into shape for reasons I might get into. This is an area further around, and you can see where they've been squeezing this thing into shape. I'll get more into that. You can go inspect the images on my Google page. So this is the so-called obelisk, and this image and what I've just shown you leaves you in no doubt, 110% and rising, that this thing has been squeezed into shape for whatever reason by humanoids of enormous size. The size of the handprint I've just shown you as Saxa Yaman on that block. So if you can imagine a giant reaching his hand down here and squeezing this thing into shape like that, like you would do, as you crush this, right, and force your fingers back, it would actually dig this area out first. It's just the way that your bones operate. So this bit would go like that, and then this bit here, yeah. So as you're squeezing this thing into shape and moving your fingers backwards and forwards, it would actually dig this area out deeper than here, and it's exactly what you see, people, which leaves me in no doubt, and I will never ever change my mind on this, that these are fingerprints, are handprints from giants of enormous size. The areas I'm going to show you now could either be any of these. It could have been something like this, like what's on the side of a tank, or tires. I want you to remember that the tread on these tires are actually hollow inside here. Yeah, they're not filled in, because the imprints I'm going to show you, they would have to be shaped like this because they're backward. I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, I couldn't find the exact tire print what I'm going to show you, but there are many. This is Aswan Quarry again, and this is a tire print or a track of something that ran over this when it was almost clay. You can see where it's pushed it up at the side and down here, and these are the prints. Yeah, but again, they would have to be hollow inside for them to be like this, because they're backward. These are meant to be pushed down, aren't they? But there's many types of prints, unless this was some type of track or tire that got laid out on the floor and left an imprint. I don't know which it is, but there's no doubt in what it is in the first place. This is the reason why I've made another video on this area for you, because I've had this image a while. It's just been buried. I couldn't find it. But this area here, again, leaves you in no doubt that we're looking at tire prints or track prints. And that's what they are. Exactly them. And the reason why I know is because these are actually shaped like 50p pieces, like hexagons. And as it's got closer to this wall, it started shaping another hexagon there. But because the wall wasn't in the way, it's only shaped half of it. Yeah? Do you understand that? It couldn't roll any further and carve another piece out and it's just left its imprint. That, I mean, look, it's subtle findings like that that prove to me the paradigms that I present to you. Okay. Yeah, in this area, it just looks like if it was in fact a tire or something, it turned round on that zone there. And obviously this is something modern. I think it was something like, you know, some sort of clay or lime that turned hard over time and went through a lot of heat at the end of some era. But you can see how this site had been used before. All these were in fact tire prints. And as this place got flooded over, it got filled in again because there's no reason for that line to be around there. These lines stop here and they don't follow on up here. So this has been dumped on here since this. Do you understand that? So these are two different images. And you can see the line there. You see these are shaped, and then that runs all the way around there. This is being dumped on top of here. Yeah, that's a single image of the fingerprint again. And you can see where they've been grinding this stuff out, and that it was in fact sand. Why it's like this, I don't know. I mean, you know, did this giant try digging somebody out of this when this event occurred? Maybe. That is in fact, it is in fact a fingerprint, and why it's shaped like a finger. And this area here is where the rest of the fingers were, because if you were to stick your finger inside something, you would actually make that shape, yeah, but with your left hand. And if you, as you shoved it in, it would leave an imprint there, and that would be a pointing finger. And again, as he's been shoving his fingers down here, fingerprints, if you stick your fingers in something soft, they actually go pointed towards the end, like teardrops. They don't leave perfect circles because your skin squeezes into a point. If you don't believe me, you can go test everything that I'm telling you. This site at Saxe-Meier, this huge block here, you can see the imprint of a hand, and it is about the same size as the hand fingerprints I've just been showing you in Egypt. This is this same site, Saxe-Meier wall, and that's what I think these are. You can see where it's bulging out there. All these will have just been concrete blocks, right? And it's got sand in it. And over time, it just hardens more, that's all. They used to say that this was andesite, it's not, it's limestone, right? They say, well, how would you get these, you know, blocks perfectly, you know, where you can't fit a human hair? Well, it's simple. You just put something like paper in between it, right? And then lay your blocks. So I could do that, but it's the scale of what we're talking about, isn't it? These are about the same size fingerprints. This wasn't living, yeah? This was created by a giant with hands like I've just shown you. And that's what they are. And you can see where it's been pulling up on this thing and forming this chin into shape. I said that is actually the right hand. You can see where that's the thumb. For some reason, it grabbed hold of here, you know. Anyway, I put this forward as some type of handprint. It's very large. What got me looking at the Sphinx was actually this here.
This part's good.
Right? It just looks exactly.
His work on the Sphinx is good, in my opinion.
Doesn't it? Right, so that's what got me looking at the Sphinx. Then it was the eyeball that kind of swayed me that this thing might have been real. Yeah, you can see where it's dried up there. But then when I saw the mouth and how the lip had been pulled out of shape, yeah, when this thing was wrapped with this thing that goes through its mouth and these appear to be teeth. Then I saw where the nose had been broke off, and you could see the nostril holes inside. Right? Proved to me that this thing wasn't really a mud fossil or something petrified. It was just a large mummy, something similar to this. You can see where this has been wrapped. This white neck, if you could actually go find old images of the Sphinx, and the neck is actually white, or was white at one time, before they started pouring loads of concrete on it. I showed you this. This is a newly excavated site in Peru or Bolivia. And that's what it is, and that's clearly a jaw. Absolutely, just, it's clearly a jaw, okay? Look at it. This central bit has been dropped here at some point to put you off. I'm not sure why.
Dude, I didn't even see it, man. Scotty's in the house. What's up, Scotty? Yeah, we're getting near the end of the show, guys, but thank you all for being here, and all the people that have dropped in along the way. Go back and watch after the recording comes out, go back and watch the beginning. There's some pretty good videos we watched, if you haven't seen, from a whole bunch of different truther people on YouTube. So we give commentary on them as well along the way. So it's good stuff. Oh, I'm glad you found. Oh, you must be talking to somebody else. I thought you were already subbed to me a while ago, man. I think.
What's he pointing out there?
Let's see. I took my eyes off the screen here. Let's see. We'll go back up just a minute. Okay, so he's showing a fist. He's showing how the giant beat his fist into that originally. See the fist marks. So the giant was beating the mud blocks or whatever they were, sandbags. I think he's what he said. That became petrified, potentially, but they were beating him into place with their giant fists. That's what he was showing there. He's showing fingerprints and how they scooped with their fingers. There's a giant footprint, obviously. 2 prints above were revealed when cracks appeared after stepping on them, removing the mud layer. Sorry, I might have had that comment in your guys' way. I didn't realize it was on. That's weird, Scotty. I remember you resubbing to me like 2 times or something, and I was like, what's up with that? Why would you unsub and resub to someone like that? I didn't know what was going on, but that explains it. Yeah, YouTube's all messed up, man. It was actually, it banned my comment, or it shadow banned my own comment on one of my videos for no reason. It's really weird. It's all a good question, Scotty. Yeah, this is that elephant one that everyone always likes to show. It certainly looks like the head of an elephant. You know. Yeah, Psalm 39, I agree. It's definitely a possibility. Yeah, and Stu, you know where else you find large trees is in all of the Pacific Northwest as well as Canada, British Columbia. So that whole area could be Lebanon, you know. I'm definitely kind of leaning towards this one, Stu. I think Utah might be, it's possible. Yeah, those giant axe heads and stuff that could only be wielded by a giant. That's what he's showing there. Yeah, the elongated skulls, quite the mystery. Hard to say if it's all a hoax or what is going on with that.
Well, that position right there with the hand, the left arm, the hand on the hip like that is 100% Masonic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, L.A. Marzulli, is that who?
No, the guy in the picture that had his hand on the shovel, but then he had his left hand on his hip. I mean, I just take that as a fraction of that. Like, I just keep in mind when I see it.
Yeah. Let's take a look at it.
Oh, right there, boom, with his, and it's almost always their left hand.
Okay, I've never thought of that look as Masonic or that pose, I guess. But are you saying that is a Masonic pose?
Yeah, and a lot of times what they'll do is they'll put their ring finger and middle finger together to make the M, and then they'll put separation between their pinky and their index finger.
Okay.
Which is another one of their poses they do.
I just hadn't seen that particular one, I guess. Well, yeah, it would obviously fit the narrative that the Masons are the ones covering up the Giants, right? They're the ones getting rid of all the evidence. Okay. Wait, he's got a little bonus here, I guess. We'll watch.
I hope that you all really enjoyed the two-part series I've just finished with there of all the giant videos that I pieced together and put together in bits and pieces for mainly the new people to this channel that would have to go through all my old videos to find all this. It will be the last time that I do it for a while. We will get back to recording brand new videos on new sites. It's something that I wanted to do for a while anyway. And just to finish on, I am really over the moon with I think it was about 7 donations that I got from the last video. People must have really liked it, so I will say on here, I'm really thankful for that. Again, I can't comment on the PayPal, so I can't thank you enough.
All right. Well, so yeah, guys, I've been streaming for about 2 hours, 40 minutes. So I'm going to wrap it up here with a quick Bible study. It won't be long, actually. It's just going to be Zechariah 13 and 14, but it is going to be interesting. So let's see. I got full screen. Any comments, Joel, on the videos or anything before I do this?
Well, I did want to ask you. It's kind of off topic a little bit. Do you believe the 1,000-year reign of Christ was physical or a spiritual reign?
Well, here's the thing. The more I'm reading the scriptures, the more I'm starting to think it was physical. And the more I'm starting to think that Jerusalem was already in the temple was in. Okay, I'm even going to go so far as to say that I even think that the camp of the saints and beloved city might already exist and may have already been rebuilt right after Armageddon and right at the beginning of the millennial reign. Because the more I'm reading into some of the scriptures, I'm finding that that's what they're saying is going to happen, basically. And that's exactly what this particular Bible study is going to relate to this question that you're asking. So
awesome. That's what I found as far as
so I'm leaning towards there was a physical reign. I'm leaning towards that essentially the new Jerusalem in Israel actually already exists. Now, there's also the possibility that it does not exist and is going to be rebuilt soon. It would have to be very soon because we're in the time before Gog and Magog is going. And I believe it's the same place as described in Revelation where Gog and Magog compasses the camp of the saints and beloved city. I believe that camp of saints and beloved city is in fact the new Jerusalem that gets built in where Israel was destroyed, just like these chapters are actually going to describe. So,
well, it says New Jerusalem comes down after Judgment Day.
Nope, and I talk about that too, or I was going to talk about that too. And
well, then just go. I'll let you.
I talked about it in my Ezekiel study as well. There's a difference. So there is that New Jerusalem as well. That is a different. So for what happened what happened or is going to happen is that there will be a new Jerusalem that will be built. It's obviously not the modern day one. We know that's a fake and all that. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about where the real people of Israel are going to be drawn from every nation out into the land of Israel, which once was the real land of Israel. So whether it's in Utah, whether it's in the North Pole, I don't know where that location is. In Ezekiel, it's described as the center of the earth. So I don't know what that means. But basically, there's going to even be a rebuilding of the temple, which is actually described in Ezekiel chapter 40 and 41. And that's going to be the earthly temple that is rebuilt. And so this is an earthly Jerusalem, not the new Jerusalem that drops down from heaven after Judgment Day.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're totally different. Yeah, they're both.
Okay, cool.
It's all leading up to that happening. You know what I mean? But there is going to be an earthly Jerusalem that is rebuilt. It's all described in Ezekiel. It's described in Zechariah.
Yeah, well, it's during the millennial reign,
and it's described a lot. So it's hard to deny that that's what's. And so my question now really is was this place built immediately after Armageddon, rebuilt, and that's where the physical Jesus ruled from, and they even went there for the feast of
exactly, dude.
What's it called? Well, we're going to read it right now. So let's just go into the study. All right, so Zechariah 13, this is one of the last Old Prophet testaments of the Old Prophet in the way the books are ordered. So it's like second to last, I think. On that day there shall be a fountain opened for the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to cleanse them from sin and uncleanness. And on that day, declares the Lord of hosts, I will cut off the names of the idols from the land, so that they shall be remembered no more. And also I will remove from the land the prophets and the spirits of uncleanness. And if anyone again prophesies, his father and mother who bore him will say to him, you shall not live, for you speak lies in the name of the Lord. And his father and mother who bore him shall pierce him through when he prophesies. On that day, every prophet will be ashamed of his vision when he prophesies. He will not put on a hairy cloak in order to deceive, but he will say, I am no prophet. I am a worker of the soil, for a man sold me in my youth. And if one asks him, what are these wounds on your back? He will say, the wounds I received in the house of my friends. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, against the man who stands next to me, declares the Lord of hosts. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. I will turn my hand against the little ones. In the whole land, declares the Lord. 2/3 shall be cut off and perish, and 1/3 shall be left alive. And I will put this third into the fire, and refine them as one refines silver, and test them as gold is tested. They will call upon my name, and I will answer them. I will say, they are my people, and they will say, the Lord is my God. Joel, comments?
I was wondering what shepherd is he referring to when he says strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered? Is he talking about himself?
This, in my opinion, this whole thing is talking about what leads up to Armageddon. So this is all leading up to Jerusalem being destroyed. After obviously when during Armageddon, when Jesus comes back and everything like that, Jerusalem is totally destroyed, and so he makes a way for he kills 2/3 of them. Basically, is what happens. He says, "In the whole land, declares the Lord, 2/3 shall be cut off and perish, and 1/3 shall be left alive." I mean, now he's
33%.
He's talking specifically to. Well, that's a good point, I guess. Yeah. He's speaking to sword against my shepherd and the man who stands next to me. So he says, strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. So the sheep would be, I believe, the people of Israel or the people of Jerusalem specifically. So I believe that they might be the sheep. And he's saying they'll be scattered because that's what happened, right? Once they're basically when God destroyed Jerusalem and Israel during Armageddon, he scattered the people, his people specifically, on purpose. He did that.
Yeah, he even told them, when you see this happen, if you're in Judea, flee to the mountains.
Because he's real mad. He's real pissed off. But he knows he's going to bring him back later out of the nations. So yeah, so 2/3. So in my opinion, when he says 2/3 shall be cut off and perish, I think he's talking about Jerusalem specifically, and 1/3 shall be left alive. Those were the people that ran for the hills and lived, basically.
Right. That's
and so the next chapter actually describes it a little bit more. So we'll move on to Zechariah 14. Behold, a day is coming for the Lord, when the spoil taken from you will be divided in your midst. For I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women raped. Half of the city shall go out into exile, but the rest of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations, as when he fights on a day of battle. On that day his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives, that lies before Jerusalem on the east.
Physical rain.
And but we'll go back and talk about this. I'll finish reading first, but we'll go back and talk about all this. And the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west by a very wide valley, so that one half of the mount shall move northward, and the other half southward. And you shall flee to the valley of my mountains. For the valley of the mountains shall reach to Azal, and you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all the holy ones with him. On that day there shall be no light, cold, or frost, and there shall be a unique day which is known to the Lord, neither day nor night, but at evening time there shall be light. On that day living waters shall flow out from Jerusalem, half of them to the eastern sea and half of them to the western sea. It shall continue in summer as in winter. And the Lord will be king over all the earth. On that day, the Lord will be one and his name one. The whole land shall be turned into a plain from Geba to Rimmon south of Jerusalem. But Jerusalem shall remain aloft on its site from the gate of Benjamin to the place of the former gate, to the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananel to the king's wine presses. And it shall be inhabited, for there shall never again be a decree of utter destruction. Jerusalem shall dwell in security. And this shall be the plague with which the Lord will strike all the peoples that wage war against Jerusalem. Their flesh will rot while they are still standing on their feet. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths. And on that day, a great panic from the Lord shall fall on them, so that each will seize the hand of another, and the hand of the one will be raised against the hand of the other. Even Judah will fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the surrounding nations shall be collected, gold, silver, and the garments of great abundance. And a plague like this plague shall fall on the horses, the mules, the camels, the donkeys, and whatever beasts may be in those camps. Then everyone who survives of all the nations that have come against Jerusalem shall go up year after year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the feast of booths. And if any of the families of the earth do not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, there will be no rain on them. And if the family of Egypt does not go up and present themselves, then on them shall there be no rain. There shall be the plague with which the Lord afflicts the nation that do not, there shall be the plague with which the Lord afflicts the nations that do not go up to keep the feast of booths. This shall be the punishment to Egypt and the punishment to all the nations that do not go up to keep the feast of booths. And on that day there shall be inscribed on the bells of the horses, holy to the Lord. And the pots in the house of the Lord shall be as the bowls before the altar. And every pot in Jerusalem and Judah shall be holy to the Lord of hosts, so that all who sacrifice may come and take of them, and boil the meat of the sacrifice in them. And there shall be no longer a traitor in the house of the Lord of hosts on that day. Joel, thoughts?
Oh, why do you throw it at me like that? Well, the first thing
I'll go first.
Right up at the beginning when it talks about, let me see here, on that day his feet shall stand. Okay, and then it says, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two. The first thing I thought of, because I was focused on what if America's Egypt, someone brought up Utah, Judah, and so I'm looking at that whole region.
Yeah.
Geography is not my thing, but could that be the Grand Canyon? Could that be?
I was thinking, what Grand Canyon popped into my mind when I was looking at this earlier today, man. That's crazy. Grand Canyon popped. You know what I was also thinking? Valley of California, the one that goes, because, but you're right. It has to go east, has to travel east and west because the mountain is split into the northward and the southward.
Right.
And that would be like a Grand Canyon type of split.
And when you look at that whole region, if that's where he came, and it says that, the elements will melt with fervent heat. I mean, we can see in theory, that's the aftermath of what it would be. It's just a dead, desolate, deserted area. I don't know. Obviously, we're trying to figure it out, but
yeah. Well, here's what I think is so this is very descriptive, man. There's so much information just in the one chapter here, because he says, behold, a day is coming for the Lord. So we know that's the day of the Lord. That's Armageddon. We know that's what he's talking about. When the spoil is taken, you'll be divided in your midst. I'll gather the nations to battle. The cities shall be taken. The houses plundered. The women raped. We know that's all about the day of the Lord, right? So we know exactly the time that he's speaking of, which is good, right? It puts it into reference for us. And he says, like you said, he says, then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle. So the Lord directly goes against those nations, and he says, on that day his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives. So it says on that day,
The day of the Lord, though, right?
Well, it says on that day. It doesn't say for every day afterwards. It just says on that day, his feet stand on the Mount of Olives that lies before Jerusalem. Now it's talking directly about the Lord, and then it says, and then the Mount of Olives shall be split into two from the east to west by a wide valley, so that northward and southward, the other half. Okay, and then he says, you shall flee to the valley of my mountains. So that's when they flee into the so that. They actually witness the people that lived see the Mountain of Olives get cracked in half into a valley, and that's where they flee is through that valley.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And they go to a place called Azal, which is some kind of a safe place for them apparently. And you shall flee as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah. And then let's see. He says, and this stuff's really weird here. He says, on that day there shall be no light, cold, or frost. And there shall be a unique day in which is known to the Lord, neither day nor night, but at evening time there shall be light. So it's like a weird phrase.
Look at where it says Uzziah, king of Judah. That almost is Utah. Like you put Uzziah, Judah together.
Oh yeah, you know what? Good catch. I didn't even think of that. Uzziah, king of Judah. Yeah.
Uzziah and Judah, if you put them together, they could be like a Utah type.
Yeah, yeah. On that day, living water shall flow out from Jerusalem. And it says, and the Lord will be king over all the earth. Now, to me, that sounds pretty physical, but we don't, I guess, know for sure. On that day, the Lord will be one and his name one. But it sounds more physical the more you go down the chapter.
Well, yeah, and there's the one, I don't know if it's in Ezekiel, but when it says there were people that refused to go to Jerusalem, which is a physical thing, they refused to go to Jerusalem to worship the king.
Oh, really? I'm not familiar with that. So yeah, there's other verses that speak to this particular stuff as well. Yeah. Where do you know where those are?
I'm pulling it up right now. They refused.
Yeah, it talks about the plague for the ones that that wage war against Jerusalem. So anybody that goes. So basically, after the millennial reign is done, or sorry, after the millennial reign starts, right after Armageddon. Eventually, basically, there is already appears a Jerusalem set up and ready to go, ready to be where apparently potentially Jesus reigns from, and it's actually in the same location as where the original Jerusalem was. It appears, and so that place may already exist, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It might be there right now. There might be people right there right now. The saints might be there right now. We don't know what's
well apparently it's Zechariah 14:17, so we are right there. You just read it apparently.
Yeah, and so so anybody that tries to go against Jerusalem, their flesh rots while they're still standing on their feet. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths. So it's just it's almost like in that Indiana Jones when you rot away really fast or something. It sounds like you try to go towards Jerusalem and you just don't even make it. You just rot away.
I had someone in a Bible study try and tell me that that's nuclear weapons, but that was before I knew nukes weren't real. But yeah, that's what they tried to use as that scripture.
Yeah, and I was going to get to the bottom here of it. Let's see. Then everyone who so then verse 16, then everyone who survives of all the nations that have come against Jerusalem shall go up year after year to worship the King. So obviously the Lord of hosts, that's God, that's physical, and to keep the Feast of Booths. I mean, I don't know how else to. Yeah, I mean, now it does say that they go up there to worship the King. It sounds like the King is there.
Yeah, and that's verse 17 was what I was thinking of. And if any of the families of the earth do not go up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, there will be no rain on them.
Right, and why would it say it twice? The King, the Lord of hosts. It's saying it's basically telling you he's a king and he's the Lord of hosts.
And it's capital K. I mean this is Jesus we're talking about, of course.
So that gives credence to the argument that it was physical.
Yeah, and then 18, and if the family of Egypt does not go up and present themselves, I mean, this is physical.
Right, and if the family of Egypt does not go, then there shall be no rain. It's all about the Feast of Booths every year during the millennial reign, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's physical rain we're talking about. It's just there's so many verses that everything in it is a physical nature.
Now, I don't really understand these last 3 verses or 2 verses, I guess. It's kind of funny. It says on that day, there shall be inscribed in the bells of the horses, holy to the Lord. I just thought it would be cool, like if you had a place and you had like land and horses, that you would put bells on them that said holy to the Lord. I just think that would be cool.
Yeah.
You know, like hopefully there's farms out there that do that. And the pots in the house of the Lord shall be as the bowls before the altar. I'm not quite sure what that means. I don't know what the bowls before the altar, what was they were clean, I guess. Were they just very clean? Is that what it was? They were presented like as a, because then he says, then you'll take them and put your sacrifice in them and boil your meat. And then, and then the last verse is kind of interesting. And there shall no longer be a traitor in the house of the Lord of hosts on that day. What do you think about that?
Well, it's not spelled the way I would think traitor, like traitor to your country. So this is trader, like barter.
Trader of goods, yeah, like a trader, a merchant.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great word.
So there will no longer be a merchant in the house of the. So basically, there was no money. There was no longer in Jerusalem after it was rebuilt, I guess, during the millennium. And there was no longer a need for money or anything like that. No longer a need for a trader of goods. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It says on that day. So how many days, like real days, are we talking about when it says on that day? Is the day the 1,000 years? Is that one day in the eye of the Lord? You know what I mean? 1,000 years. Because as we know, the Bible does reference that.
Right. And that's where it gets so confusing for me is it very clearly when it says it's, you know, and they shall reign with Christ for 1,000 years. I don't believe that's a day. You know what I mean? I believe that's actual 1,000 years. So I don't know.
Yeah, but for me, it almost sounds like during the entire 1,000 years, it's saying, and there shall no longer be a traitor in the house of the Lord.
Okay, so it would be like interchanged, where here it says day, it would actually mean 1,000 years.
Correct. That's what I'm using the 1,000 years today principle, because in other parts of the Bible, I believe in at least one other part, it says that essentially 1,000 years is like a day in the eye of the Lord.
Right. Gotcha.
Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah. A day is, yeah.
Like a day is 1,000 years. Only in the eye of the Lord, not of any man. Or anything.
My only confusion is why would there be any sacrifices at all? When it says so that all who sacrifice may come and take of them and boil the meat of the sacrifice in them. Why? Jesus is the final sacrifice, the only thing we need. So why would Jesus allow any sacrifice during the millennial reign? Why would he ever want a sacrifice? You know what I mean? Wouldn't that kind of almost be blasphemous?
You mean, are you talking about animal sacrifice or something? Or?
Yeah, isn't that what they're talking about right here?
Okay,
in verse 21.
Okay, let's parse that out. Actually, it's a good question, I guess. Let's see. There shall be So, and on that day there shall be inscribed on the bells of the horses, and every pot in Jerusalem and Judah shall be holy to the Lord of hosts, so that all who sacrifice may come and take of them and boil the meat of the sacrifice in them. And there shall no longer be a traitor in the house of the Lord on that day. Now let's see, when they go up, where does it talk about the Feast of Hosts here?
I've never even heard of this Feast of Booths.
Or Feast of Booths, sorry, yeah, I don't know.
I've never even heard of it. I don't remember reading that ever.
Yeah, okay, and they worship him. There's punishment. Yeah, so it only says that they have to go and worship him here. It doesn't say anything about a sacrifice, but then down here, you're right, during the Feast of Booths, it does describe a sacrifice. I mean, it says, so that all who sacrifice may come and take of them and boil the meat of the sacrifice in them. So there was I think they just would go up and sacrifice to the Lord every year, right? During the Feast of Booths. It doesn't seem that crazy of an idea, like a thing that it's not. I mean, it was almost like, and if you didn't do it, you were plagued, apparently. You had no rain on your house. So you did still have to go and pay sacrifice, I guess. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, that's where I'm at, is I'm trying to reconcile why, like what it means when it says sacrifice, because it could, because a set where people would make sacrifice trying to cover up their sin and all that stuff before Jesus came, even though I believe we've always been saved by faith. I just don't understand why this would be here.
I know it seems to kind of conflict with some of the other stuff in the Bible, right? I mean, I'm 100% sure it all fits. It's just like figuring out how it fits,
Right. Sure.
I just think that potentially I think that saved through faith is true even during the millennial reign, but it just appears that so then everyone who survives of all the nations that have come against Jerusalem.
What are your thoughts in the chat here? What do you guys think about this?
It was a form of repentance, I think, is what this was. I mean, they had to go up and worship the king. They had to. I don't know. They were forced to do it almost. Otherwise,
well, it says he would rule with a rod of iron. I mean, that's the thing.
That's
Jesus.
Not exactly a choice. That's not exactly a choice. You know what I mean? Or like a choice like it sounds like consequences, right? Like
for sure. That's what the word I was going to say. And God's standard is, it's not like, like the idea that we have here in America where it's like, oh, freedom of religion. Well, if Jesus is the one running this country, for example, there wouldn't be these other false religions. Like, he's not just going to be cool with that. In my opinion, he's never been cool with it. Every time they worshiped a false idol or a false god, he's never been okay with it. It always brought judgment.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I think this all leads to like my understanding of how Jerusalem actually exists. It already existed for like 1,300 years now. After it was destroyed, it was like immediately rebuilt. It looks like.
They could be hiding it too.
Right.
Like after Jesus left.
And unfortunately, for whatever reason, Satan's being allowed to deceive the nations, and therefore they're not revealing themselves either. But I mean, I think that a believer could probably just go there and be allowed in. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, here's my hypothesis on the whole, like, where did Jesus go after the 1,000 years? If we go to Revelation 21, I think it is, when it talks about New Jerusalem coming down, it describes the voice from the throne. So we know by this point, Jesus is on the throne. So somewhere between the end of the 1,000 years, because I do believe it was physical, and I believe that he went back up into heaven and let Satan loose for this season, and then he's on the throne when New Jerusalem comes down. It talks about the voice.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he's the light of New Jerusalem. Yeah, there's no day or night anymore there.
And at what point does it happen? Because I was sharing the whole
after Judgment Day. It was pretty much immediately after Judgment Day.
Right, where he is the light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, there's but what's weird is that it talks about how New Jerusalem comes down and we all get to go live there and everything. But it also talks about how the earth is actually remade as well. There's a new heaven and a new earth, and so the old earth and the old heaven is wiped away. Death and Hades is thrown into the lake of fire with Satan. And then basically the new earth is created and the new Jerusalem drops down onto the new earth. And there's people that apparently still live outside of New Jerusalem on earth in different places, is what it sounds like to me.
Well, after, yeah, that'd be so
because
weird,
it even
though,
talks
because
about
it
even talks about how the certain people won't be allowed into New Jerusalem, anyone that's unclean. So even uncleanness is potentially still allowed on New Earth. I don't know.
Well, because Judgment Day, I mean, the Great White Throne Judgment happens before New Jerusalem comes down. So anyone who's not saved, and I believe that everyone that goes to the Great White Throne Judgment is condemned to hell. I believe that we believers go to the judgment seat of Christ, the Bema seat, and that's where we receive our rewards. But so if everyone that is going to end to have their part in the lake of fire, that happens before New Jerusalem comes down. So how could people be kept out of it unless he's referring to the ones who were in the lake of fire? I mean, how could that is confusing to me. Like, are some believers not allowed in New Jerusalem, but they get to hang outside in the courtyard?
It is weird. So it says, then I saw, so Revelation 21, verse 1, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Okay, so let's see here. God himself will be their God. He'll wipe every tear away from their eyes. Death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain, for the former things have all passed away. Let's see. Spring of life. Yeah, and then it says here, it says, to the thirsty I will give from the spring of the water of life without payment. The one who conquers will have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. So that would be us, pretty much. But then he says, but as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur. Okay, so never mind. That's the second death. Never mind. So they do go to the lake of fire. So that's not people living on earth anymore. They're gone. They're in the lake of fire. So sexually immoral, idolaters, all those people. Okay, so then let's see. Then they came, one of the seven angels. That wasn't the part I was thinking of. So let me find it here. Let's see. And the one who spoke. Let's see. Right. Okay. And he says here, okay, so verse 26, they will bring into it the glory and the honor of the nations, but nothing unclean will ever enter it, nor anyone who does what is detestable or false, but only those who are written in the Lamb's Book of Life.
Right. So that's just guaranteeing that sin and death are over with, gone. Nothing will ever corrupt it
again. The only thing I was thinking was like, okay, a new earth's been created, and then now it's saying that nothing unclean will ever enter New Jerusalem. So it's like, so do unclean things still exist? You know what I mean, on the new earth?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think they probably not. Yeah.
Because it's because anyone who's not written in the Lamb's Book of Life is in the lake of fire at this point. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is kind of like where he says, you know, there shall be no more tears and all that stuff. I think this is just reiterating that this thing is going to be done, wrapped up. Sin is defeated, death is defeated, the curse is gone, and it'll never happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's going to be a pretty sweet time to be alive and still be alive and not be in the lake of fire.
It feels weird, man, to be like excited for my life to be over. And I'm at like square one at 35 years old.
I don't feel like that at all. No, I'm excited for what's still to come on earth, man. There's so much.
I'm not saying my attitude is correct at all. I'm just like,
yeah, actually, you know, you shouldn't really be looking forward to a total destruction of all the people.
I'm just trying to balance, like, okay, you know, I put myself in a position where I'm kind of like building, completely starting over, but then I have this vision of like, all right, I see this whole Agenda 2030 thing clearly kicking off. So how much time is there really? Like, is it worth me going and, you know, trying to live a normal life? I don't think that's even possible at this point. I feel like I know too much and I just want this to be over with. But
yeah. All right, well, I think I'm going to end the live stream now. I've been streaming for like over 3 hours, so I'm going to head out. But thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Much love, man. I'm glad you did this. This was refreshing for sure.
Yeah, man. Good. It was a good time. I had a good time. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Joel. And Scotty says, why did Jesus have to be a human and die? And it's like, yeah, that is like the ultimate question, right? And it's just like a mystery. It's kind of like the mystery of the Bible. And it's like, why did he have to do that? Why did God have to like come in the flesh and die like that and be a sacrifice? And it all has to do with being the perfect sacrifice for us so that we could be cleaned up, so that we would be fit to actually live in heaven with God, because otherwise we were just way too unclean.
Yeah, he had, for it to be a sufficient sacrifice, he had to be, you know, what he was saving. You know, it wouldn't be equal unless he was a man who walked, you know, obviously he's God in the flesh, but I think that it was required for him to come as a man and die as a man to cover us.
For sure, man.
But all right, man, I'm gonna sign off. I will talk to you later.
Sounds good, man. Thanks a lot. Take
All right,
care.
man.
I'll end us with a prayer here for everyone. You don't have to stay connected if you don't want, Joel, or you can. Yeah, no worries. You can guys can just, if you're a man, it's probably best to take off your hat. If you're a woman, it's best to put on your cap. If not, that's okay too. It's up, you know, it's between you and God. But thank you, oh Heavenly Father, for this live stream today. It was a lot of fun. There's a lot of good people that popped in and out and were commenting, and I'm just really thankful for that. And I hope some people learned some things today. We even had like a new kind of guy that's learning in here, Psalm 39. So amen for that, or hallelujah for that. I just want to give a special prayer to Vic Noy, which was asking for it. He's kind of having a bad day. Got a little bit better, I think, so that's good. And also definitely for Alan and Noah Church and Alan Hughes, who are currently ministering to the Hopi Nation on Hopi reservation land. And we know their mission is blessed, and we're just really hoping for the best with all of that. And I want to pray for Tommy from Texas. He's been having some trouble lately with his health, so I just want to give, hopefully he can get some healing spirit. And just anybody else out there that feels like they need it, this is for you. Thanks a lot for being here. And love you guys, and I'll see you next time. Take care.